After their battle against the Serpoians, Okarun met the person they referred to as Ayase's childhood friend and first love, which evidently gave Okarun an uncomfortable feeling. In this video, we'll discuss what Gigi brings to the story, what his connection to Ayase might be, and why he suddenly showed up at their house. Expect to see more jaw-dropping action, new friends and foes that will push their newfound abilities to the limit. Let's get started. Okarun seemed unable to believe that Gigi was Ayase's first love, and he even said that Gigi looked cool, and based on his outfit, he must be a true blue athlete. He added that Gigi looked sincere, and since Ayase fell for him, he must be a real tough guy type. Gigi called Ayase Sweetie, and said her totally terrible impression was priceless. You could see on the faces of the three that they found him weird. Gigi said it had been a long time since he and Ayase had seen each other, and he asked if they could start with a hug. Ayase called him annoying, but he seemed to like it. Gigi acted like Spider-Man while saying, "Gimme more," and Ayase asked Okarun for help to off Gigi. Seiko greeted Gigi, saying long time no see, and he bowed while responding that it had indeed been a long time since they'd seen each other, and Seiko was still as beautiful as ever. Seiko said Gigi had become a genius and told him to make himself at home. Ayase couldn't believe it and asked her grandmother what she was saying. Seiko replied, asking if it wasn't obvious yet, and that Gigi would be moving in with them. Ayase didn't like what she heard and asked what for. Gigi pointed out Momo's objection, but it was just an expression of her love for him. Seiko called him a genius again. Ayase asked about her permission, and Okarun also seemed surprised that Gigi would be living there. Shiratori said it was extremely unnatural and questioned if they were trying to bring forth new demons. She added that they might be gathering steadfast allies to prepare for the coming of Ragnarok, but Okarun told her it probably wasn't like that. Shiratori shouted that she wouldn't allow it, and Ayase asked her what her problem was. Shiratori replied that Ayase's schemes were completely transparent. She added that they were currently facing an alien threat, so she was allying with them, but once that's over, she would fight against them. Ayase said Shiratori was making things too complicated, and Okarun agreed. Shiratori said she would also gather allies to fight Ayase in Ragnarok, and then she left. Until next time, Okarun said to her, and Ayase thought it was one pain in the ass after another. Okarun also said goodbye, and Ayase told him to take care. As Okarun was walking away, Ayase called him, making hand signals. Okarun asked what she was saying, and Ayase replied that it meant see you tomorrow, and it was Okarun's turn to say it. Okarun was surprised there was a turn order, and Ayase told him to just say it already. Okarun said see you tomorrow, and Ayase seemed to be blushing. Okarun went home, and his heart was throbbing, showing that he had developed feelings for Ayase. In the next scene, there was food prepared, and Ayase said she didn't understand. She told her grandmother and Gigi to explain why Gigi would be living there. They ignored her, and Gigi praised Seiko's cooking. Seiko said Gigi was a true genius, and an annoyed Ayase asked if they had heard her. According to Seiko, she had already told Ayase that both of Gigi's parents had been hospitalized. Ayase asked why he was there, saying that at times like these, Gigi should be with his other family members. Her grandmother called her cold and said people need to help each other in times of need. Gigi said Seiko was cool, and Seiko replied that Gigi was truly a genius, so he should eat his fill. Ayase said that Gigi had already won over her grandmother's emotions, and she replied not to be stupid. She said she had never been moved by emotions even once. Then, Gigi praised Seiko again, and we can see that Ayase was right. While the two were cleaning the dishes, Ayase said something funny was happening, and Gigi thanked her, but Ayase added that it was funny weird. Gigi asked if they were ever that good of friends. He said that when they were in elementary school, he used to make fun of Momo, but now that he looks back at it, he regrets it. He added that he could now see spirits. Ayase was surprised and asked if he had happened to pick up a golden nut, but he wondered what that was. Gigi asked if it was a dirty joke, and Ayase told him to forget about it. Gigi said they grew apart starting from junior high school when he moved. The place his family moved to was near the mountains, and there's lots of nature which he loved. The house was big, and everything was exciting at first, but he gradually felt that something was off. It was hard to explain, but things there like the toilet and bathroom were a bit different from normal. He mentioned it to his parents, but they didn't listen, so he convinced himself it was just his imagination. He pretended not to notice it and just continued with his life. In the next scene, we see an extremely tall and thin man with a deformed face facing Gigi. Gigi said it suddenly appeared to him as if saying, "Hey, look at me," and from then on, he always saw the man. After that, his parents fell ill, so they hired supposedly famous spirit mediums to perform an exorcism, but 3 out of 5 decided to off themselves. Even the most experienced mediums couldn't exorcise that man, and the last person they told him to contact was Seiko. Isa said that was the story, and she wished Gigi had told her from the beginning. Seiko hadn't told her Gigi was coming, and she added that it was right for him to come to them. Gigi apologized and Isa stopped him, asking what he was apologizing for. Gigi said for many things like teasing Isa in the past and involving her in his problem. Isa replied that if Gigi needed to apologize, he shouldn't have asked in the first place. She added that it was okay, and her grandmother was really tough. She said her grandmother would beat the evil spirit with one shot. Seiko said she wouldn't do anything, which surprised Isa, because as she had said, she could only use her powers within Kamigo City. So Momo would be the one to do that assignment. Isa couldn't believe what she heard, and Gigi couldn't believe that Isa called Seiko her grandmother. Seiko said that if Gigi couldn't see spirits before, but could now, it might have something to do with the golden ball. Seiko ordered Isa to do that assignment, and she would buy her uniforms until the cow returned. She told Isa to go blow down that cursed house. In the next scene, a person is expressing gratitude, saying he is just transferred. He introduces himself as Jean and Joji, but says to call him Gigi. The girls are amazed and find him handsome, while the male students seem to dislike him already. While the teacher explains that Gigi's parents are in the hospital, Gigi's acting cute towards the girls. The teacher says he's going through a lot, so they should support him. As the teacher says this, Gigi is asking for a girl's number, saying it might kill him if he doesn't get it, and we can see on Isa's face that she's getting annoyed. The teacher says Gigi can sit next to Isa and asks if they're related. Gigi replies that they're even closer than that, but Isa says neither of those things is true. One of Isa's friends said playboys are annoying. The horror, says Gigi, claiming he's been burned by a beauty and that he'll savor those words. Isa's friend is surprised by what he said. The tables have turned, and she says Gigi seems like a good dude and is handsome, another friend adds, while Isa looks extremely annoyed. Gigi says maybe Isa's friend meant to say he's mega handsome. He adds that he feels like he's being drawn close to Isa's friend, and that she's super sweet, while continuing to act cute. This friend asks who the guy she's talking to is, and says he's funny, and another friend asks the same. Isa thinks for a moment about how to explain, and says they've been friends since elementary school. Then Gigi suddenly interrupts, saying they live together. Isa tells him to stop because he'll start weird rumors. Isa's friend asks if it's true, and Isa says to let her finish, but Gigi suddenly says they're lovey-dovey, and Isa looks annoyed with him. Gigi says he and Isa are in a relationship, and she's choking him while telling him to shut up. Their other classmates are already gossiping, and one of Isa's friends tells Gigi that it's not possible because Isa has Okarun. We then see Okarun slumped over his desk. He says he's being bothered by Isa's first love, and he's wondering if Isa still likes him. Gigi calls Isa Momo, and it's sweet. Okarun wonders if they like each other, and if Isa would still be friendly with him if she started dating Gigi. Surely Isa would become interested in whatever Gigi is interested in, and she'd lose interest in the occult. He thinks this means he won't be able to talk to Isa during his downtime, or even just be with her. Okarun is overthinking too much about Isa, and he's banging his head on his desk while slapping his face. He imagines Isa acting cute towards Gigi, and when the school bell rings, he immediately stands up calling himself useless. In the next scene, We see Okarun working out, and he tells himself not to think about anything else because what's important is to hone his body. Ayase arrives, causing Okarun to suddenly dive, and she asks if he's practicing a special move. Okarun asks if she's eaten, and Ayase replies that she'll eat there. Okarun wonders why there, and Ayase says she'll watch Okarun to make sure he doesn't do anything weird. Okarun says what happened with him, and Shiratori wasn't his fault, and Ayase asks if he's eaten. Okarun says not yet, and Ayase says if his hands are full, she can feed him. Okarun agrees to this, and then someone calls Ayase's name. It's Gigi, and he recognizes Okarun, asking if he and Ayase are friends. Ayase asks him if he wasn't supposed to be eating with Maiko and the others. Gigi asks if Ayase is jealous, and she replies that she's not. He then took out a Pampy yogurt drink that made Ayase look excited. Gigi says it's a gift for Ayase, and Okarun sees this, seemingly envious of what he's watching. Okarun leaves, saying he can't watch Ayase happily talking with Gigi. He says he'll try to stop hanging out with Ayase, and that it's probably for the best for both of them. At that moment, he hears someone say they won't give up so easily, and he sees a man with half of his body skinless running towards him. He calls out to Ayase, and we see Okarun running away from the man. The man overtakes Okarun and tells him to step aside as no one can stop him. Ayase and Gigi are shocked by what they see, so Gigi tries to leave while Ayase tells the man to stop. The man says not to block his way, and Gigi is worried about Ayase, but she stands firm and says it's no skin off her nose. Gigi jumps to save Ayase, and we see the man jump over both of them, allowing Ayase to clearly see something shining near the man's bottom. She tells Okarun that the man's ball is golden, and Gigi tells Ayase to hide behind him, but Ayase tells him to let go. Okarun chases after the man, and Ayase tries to catch him using her magic powers, saying he won't escape. Ayase grabs hold of the man, and he says Ayase has got some nerve, then speeds up his running, dragging Ayase and Gigi along. Okarun follows them, and Ayase tells Okarun to stop the man, while Gigi tells Ayase to hold on tight to him. Okarun gets angry and shouts at Gigi to get away from Ayase. The man continues running, and Ayase tells Okarun again that his ball is golden. While taking off his socks, Okarun says he doesn't like it and asks if Gigi could just stay away from Ayase. Okarun transforms to chase the man, who asks if he's planning to stop him, but claims he can't be stopped. What a bummer, Okarun replies, and Gigi says there's another monster. Okarun and Ayase try to reach each other, but the man climbs up buildings, separating the two. Ayase is still holding onto the man, so she rises when he climbs the buildings, and they nearly hit power lines. Ayase is reaching for something, and we see that using her powers, she reaches Okarun to avoid the power lines. Now, Ayase and Gigi are about to hit a bus, but luckily Okarun saves them just in time, and the bus passengers can clearly see it. Okarun carries Ayase and Gigi on his back, and she thanks him for saving them both. Gigi says they've been caught by the monster, and he'll protect Momo, so he starts hitting Okarun. Ayase tells him to stop because Okarun is on their side. She explains that the monster carrying them is Okarun, and Gigi can't believe it. Gigi asks about the man with half his body skinless, and Ayase says it's fine because she still has a firm grip on him. Ayase tells the two boys to plant their feet, and it looks like they're managing to stop the man because of this. She adds that she hopes he's learned his lesson, and calls him a butt nugget. Okarun says to pull him slowly, but the man says he won't give up, and he doesn't want to give up. Suddenly, the man's body breaks into pieces, disgusting Ayase, but his body quickly returns to normal, and he escapes again. Gigi says the man is escaping, and Ayase orders Okarun to chase him, but unfortunately, he manages to get away completely. Okarun asks what they should do now, saying they don't know where the man went. On the other hand, Gigi is surprised to see Okarun morphing. After that, Ayase does something with her hand as if she's punching something, until she hears the sound of someone getting hurt. She runs towards the direction of the sound, and Okarun asks what it is. Ayase does something with her hands again, and Okarun asks what she's doing. They hear the sound of someone getting hurt again, and it seems to be coming from a construction site. Okarun asks if they can enter without permission. They see the man inside, and he says he almost escaped. Okarun asks Ayase how she knew where the man went, and Gigi says he looks pooped. Ayase explains that when the man split himself into many pieces, she didn't let go of his heart. She thought about what would happen if she punched it, and she heard the man getting hurt. Okarun feels sorry for the man, and Gigi says that's cool. Ayase tells the man they're not there to catch and eat him, and if he promises not to run away, she'll return his heart. Then, she asks if she can see his golden ball because it might belong to her friend. Okarun says to be less direct, and Gigi asks if dirty jokes are that popular. At that moment, they hear someone speaking, asking if it's Taro's voice they're hearing. Taro immediately recognizes the voice as Hannah's, and he's looking for her in the piled-up trash. Hannah tells Taro not to come closer and to just stay away, but Taro says he won't give up. He says he won't give up on Hannah, and Ayase asks what's happening. We see Hannah, who has no arms and legs, surrounded by bandages, and like Taro, half of her body is skinless. Taro is overjoyed that he's finally found Hannah, but she asks why he looked for her and why he put himself in danger. Taro answers that it's because he loves Hannah. He says that since he met Hannah, his life has changed. His world used to be just gray, but now it has color because of Hannah. We see Okarun while this is being said, implying that he feels the same way about Ayase. Hannah says that she and Taro are from different eras and live in different worlds. She says she's done her part, and it's over, so Taro should go back before he ends up in the trash. He says he doesn't care. Hannah is the woman he loves, and no matter what happens, he won't let her go. He invites her to run away together, saying that if he doesn't do anything now, he'll regret it for the rest of his life. Hannah seems touched by what he said because she's starting to cry, and so is Okarun, who relates to Taro's situation. Back to Ayase's house, we see that Hannah now has clothes, and Okarun is pleading to let her stay there. Seiko asks why they can't let Hannah stay at Okarun's house, but Okarun replies that it's not possible because they can only hope on asking for permission here. Momo says that Turbo Granny is living there, so why can't Hannah? Turbo Granny responds not to compare Hannah to her, and suggests that maybe Hannah doesn't eat. Seiko asks what happened to Taro, and Momo answers that he returned to the science classroom, which puzzles Seiko. Momo explains that as long as Hannah is safe, Taro said he would return as an anatomical model, but in exchange, he wants permission to see Hannah when he escapes from school at night. The three are begging, and Gigi says their hope lies in Seiko's magnanimous heart. Seiko says that of all things, Hannah is an anatomical model in the heat, and she agrees to let her be lovey-dovey with Taro as long as they don't bother the neighbors. She also asks about the golden nut, and Momo says it turns out it was just a Christmas ornament or something. So Seiko just responds with that's crazy. Momo says it's like animals when they're courting. Her grandmother asks what Momo can do, and Okarun says it doesn't make sense. While they're talking, Gigi is bothering Turbo Granny, so she kicks him in the face. Seiko says she'll cook dinner now, so they should prepare the table, and Momo asks Okarun if he'll eat there, to which he replies yes. While setting the table, Gigi says Momo is incredibly strong, so he now understands why Seiko trusted her with the exorcism of his house. He says the same about Okarun, and his transformation earlier was wicked. It was super badass, he says, and he wishes he had powers too, but Okarun says he shouldn't. Momo tells Gigi to move aside because she's bringing out the table, and Gigi wants to help. Okarun sees how Momo and Gigi are playfully interacting while bringing out the table, and Gigi is acting cute towards Momo. Gigi says there's something on Momo's face, and he claims to have removed a speck of dust from it. Momo thanks him, and Gigi asks if she shouldn't be more grateful, but Momo tells him to leave. Gigi asks Momo to say it again, so he'll leave, but Momo just says no way, no how. Okarun is very jealous of what he's seeing, and he remembers what Taro said earlier about his love for Hannah as he relates to it. Okarun suddenly gets in between the two and tells Ayase that there was dirt. and he removed it. Momo thanks him and asks what's the matter. Okarun says he's decided not to hold back anymore, and he's going to fight now, which confuses Momo. While setting up the table, Okarun sings what he wants to say, that he's liked Momo since they met. As he sings, Gigi joins in, and they both sing to Momo at that moment, so Momo calls them morons. Seiko tells them to be quiet, saying they're making a mess, so the two apologize. She adds that Momo will sleep at Gigi's house on the weekend, so she should make sure to pack her underwear and things. Momo says her grandmother doesn't need to say that out loud, and we see that Okarun looks shocked at what he heard. He asks why Ayase is going to Gigi's house, and Momo answers that she already told him. Gigi's house is cursed, and they want her to cleanse it. That's also the reason why Gigi is at their house. Okarun asks if only Momo and Gigi will be sleeping there, and Momo says no. She plans to invite Okarun because she'd feel uneasy if she were alone, and Okarun can't believe it. Okarun suddenly becomes enthusiastic and says they should do it right away so Gigi can go back to his house. And Momo is puzzled by Okarun's sudden change in mood, while Gigi thanks him. We move to the school, and one student says the school is freaky at night. Another asks if it's okay for them to be there without permission, and one answers that it's fine, they're just going to do a small seance. One says he'll take the video, and another asks if they hear anything. The girl with him says not to joke around, but suddenly they hear loud thud sounds. They're all scared, and they see a figure running. It's Taro, and he tells the students screaming about a ghost to get out of his way. Taro shouts for Hannah to hold on, and he's on his way, but unfortunately, he seems to get hit by a truck. In the next scene, we see Momo feeling sleepy while accompanying Hannah as they wait for Taro outside the house. Momo says Taro still isn't there, and it's almost 4 o'clock, but Hannah shouldn't worry because she'll stay with her until Taro shows up. Taro will come, she says, and everything will be okay. Momo falls asleep while waiting, and Taro arrives with his body looking wrecked. He apologizes to Hannah, saying he was hit by a truck and it took him time to gather the parts that were scattered. Hannah calls Taro's name, and she tells him she loves him. Momo wakes up at that moment and sees the two kissing. She says Taro could have woken her up when he arrived, and Hannah thanks her for staying with her. Taro says a lot happened, so he was late, but tomorrow he'll arrive before 2 o'clock, and an annoyed Momo says Taro plans to do this every day. In the next scene, we see Gigi's room, and it looks like he's woken up from a nightmare. He says he can't go back to sleep because of the man haunting his house. We see a beautiful scene, and people are playing cards inside the train. It turns out to be Okarun and the others, and it seems Momo has outsmarted Okarun. While laughing at Okarun, Momo says that he's not good at Old Maid, and Okarun retorts that they're being mean-spirited. Momo then says that Okarun is like a toddler, and Gigi even calls him Toddler Okarun. Because of this, Okarun gets upset and says he won't play anymore. Momo says they were just joking, and Gigi offers Okarun some candies to make him feel better. Momo mentions that the candies remind her of the past, and she really loves them. According to Gigi, he brought a lot, so Momo should have some too. Gigi adds that he was touched when he saw that the old sweet shop was still there, and Momo says that the old lady there hasn't changed one bit. Okarun seems to feel left out of the conversation, and as he watches the two talking, he thinks that for some reason, he doesn't like it. He feels disgusted with his own shortcomings when he has these kinds of thoughts. He wonders what he could do about these feelings, and he needs to get rid of those thoughts, so he decides to focus on getting his marble back. Momo noticed him and asked what's wrong, and he answers that it's about his nut. The two are surprised by his random answer, and while laughing, Momo says that Okarun is thinking too much about his marble nut. Okarun replies that it's not like that, but Gigi interrupts, saying that he's being bothered and asks when dirty jokes became a fad. Momo says that it's not a dirty joke and that it's a long story. Gigi then says he'll start a new trend, and that's his junk. According to Momo, there's no dirty joke craze, and Gigi responds with Famola. Momo laughingly says it's just like the Kazu commercial, and she laughs while Gigi jokes around. Okarun seems to be getting filled with jealousy when he sees Momo happily laughing with Gigi, and he shouts that he'll tell them about the Tsuchi Noko monster. Momo and Gigi seem excited about it, and Okarun suddenly seems to regret what he said. He tells himself that it's very unmanly, but because of what's happening, his heart can't take it, and he feels he needs to dominate Ayase's attention. Okarun starts his story, saying that cryptids are not just creatures of imagination. In fact, about 100 years ago, gorillas were considered cryptids, and he sees the Tsuchi-no-ko, which looks like a snake, as the next gorilla-like cryptid. Gigi then says that he remembers a legend from his village about a big snake. There's apparently a 200-year-old shrine dedicated to it, the Tsuchi-no-ko shrine, and Momo is impressed, which seems to annoy Okarun. Momo wants to see the shrine and the giant Tsuchi-no-ko snake, so Gigi tells her to just come with him. And Okarun gets more annoyed because his plan to dominate Momo's attention seems to have backfired. Then he mentions that there's also a shrine dedicated to a Kappa mummy, so a cryptid shrine isn't that rare, and he thinks that he threw the cryptid shrine topic back in Gigi's face. Gigi says that's super spooky and that Kappas do exist. He then asks about Nessie. Apparently, there are photos and whatnot. He thinks it's real and hopes to see it. Okarun then says that the famous photo of Nessie is known as the surgeon's photograph, and it's known to be fake, but he saw Nessie with his own eyes recently. Gigi is very surprised by what he heard and says he wants to see it too. Okarun thinks that this is the first time he's talked to someone like this besides Ayase, and it feels good. Gigi says that what Okarun is saying is awesome. He just knows everything, and he respects Okarun as a friend. Okarun is surprised that Gigi called him a friend, and Gigi asks if he's wrong, saying it's shocking. He adds that Okarun is friends with Momo, so wouldn't Okarun count him as a friend too? "Excuse me," says Okarun, because he's an awkward fellow, and Momo says that she's already told Okarun not to say that. Gigi wonders why not, and Momo answers that he doesn't need to know. Gigi then says not to count him out of Momo's inner circle. Okarun thinks about why Gigi isn't more unlikable, and how someone so kind makes him, but that thought is interrupted as we're shown a busy street, where Momo looks amazed. We also see the three of them walking, and Momo excitedly mentions that there are hot spring baths there. Gigi says it's related to his father's work. Momo asks if Gigi's father is a professor, and Gigi replies that his father studies volcanoes at a nearby university, which is also the reason why they moved. Momo asks if there's a volcano that might erupt, and Gigi says that the last recorded eruption was 200 years ago, but people say it's been dormant since then. They arrive at a steep staircase, and it seems Momo and Okarun don't want to climb it. But on the other hand, Gigi is excited. They climb it and Gigi points somewhere, and in the next scene, they arrive at a house. This is Gigi's house, and he asks Momo if she sees any strange aura. Momo asks him if he's not tired, and also says that she doesn't see anything. She adds that the house is super ordinary, and Gigi says that according to spirit mediums, it's messed up. Momo says she's very thirsty, and Gigi asks again if she really doesn't see anything. Okarun says to wait for him, and we see some figures in the forest that Okarun notices. Momo tells Okarun to hurry up, and Okarun seems to feel the presence of the figures. We see that it's actually a group of people with a creepy look on their faces. In the next scene, Gigi and the others entered his house, and upon entering, Ayase and Okarun carefully observed their surroundings, while the two boys hid behind Ayase, as Okarun asked what she thought of the place and if she noticed anything weird. Ayase opened a cabinet to examine its contents, then proceeded to inspect the bathtub and bathroom, and after a brief investigation, she sat on Gigi's sofa, while Okarun and Gigi continued to cautiously scan the area. Suddenly, the television in the living room turned on, capturing Okarun's attention, and he pointed out that it had activated on its own, but it was revealed that Ayase had used the remote control to switch it on. So Okarun exclaimed that she had startled him and questioned why she would turn it on so abruptly, to which Ayase replied by asking what else they could do there. She then stated that she hadn't observed anything unusual, causing Okarun to glance at Gigi as if doubting. So Gigi cried out, asking if that meant they didn't believe him, but Ayase clarified that wasn't the case. She inquired whether, when the spirit mediums had visited, they had correctly identified the presence of something dangerous there, and if so, her conjecture was that the ghost must be hiding which puzzled Okarun about what she meant by hiding. So Ayase explained that it was just like with Turbo Granny, where spirits with weak spirit energy are difficult for her to detect, so they tend to hide, and in other words, she said, their task here would be relatively easy. Gigi was amazed by her and commented on how cool that was, and he promptly offered to give Ayase a shoulder massage, which made Okarun jealous and shout hey, while Ayase simply relaxed and commented that they wouldn't hear her complaining. And when she mentioned wanting something sweet to drink, Gigi immediately ran to fetch it, while Okarun remained flustered because Gigi had touched Ayase's shoulder. And Ayase then suggested they rest for now and told Okarun to sit down as well. After Gigi left, and while Okarun and Ayase were seated on the sofa, Ayase mentioned that at night the spirits act as if they own the place, so they should rest while they can, and Okarun agreed. And Ayase added that because of this, she would go to the hot springs district, which surprised Okarun. This made Okarun skeptical, and he asked if she was just saying there was no ghost in the house because she wanted to go to a hot spring, which made Ayase blush and exclaim no, insisting that she truly hadn't seen anything. Afterwards, Ayase put on her shoes and told Okarun to just play with Gigi for now, while Okarun was bewildered that she was really going, and asked what they would do if the ghost appeared to them. So Ayase answered while running towards the hot spring that they shouldn't worry about that, and she'd be back later that night. And she bid farewell, and Okarun couldn't stop her then. Gigi arrived there and happily looked for Ayase to give her the sweet juice, but he was dumbfounded when he noticed she wasn't there. So Okarun explained to him that she had gone to the hot springs district, which made Gigi ask if it was true and that he wished he could have joined her. Gigi stared at the perspiring Okarun due to the awkwardness of the situation and suddenly invited him to play soccer. In the next scene, they began playing soccer, and here, Gigi taught Okarun how to trap the ball, which Okarun successfully managed, earning praise from Gigi. After Okarun accomplished this, Gigi instructed him to kick the ball using his pivot foot on the side of the ball and to strike it with the edge of his foot. Okarun attempted this, but the trajectory of his kick was slightly off, causing him to apologize, though Gigi reassured him while chasing the ball that it was all right. Gigi managed to catch up and kick the ball back to Okarun, but Okarun failed to receive it, prompting another apology, to which Gigi laughed and commented that he was apologizing too much. As Okarun ran to retrieve the ball, he thought to himself how lame he was and how fortunate it was that Ayase wasn't present to witness this. However, he reasoned that if he practiced now, should the opportunity arise, he could showcase his skills to Ayase, and in his imagination, he pictured Ayase marveling at him and telling him how cool he was, causing him to blush. But his daydreaming was interrupted when Gigi called out to him. Upon turning to face Gigi, he was suddenly asked if he had feelings for Ayase, causing him to blush and stammer, huh? To which Gigi added that it was understandable as Ayase was quite cute. Okarun responded while Gigi passed the ball to him, stating that, well, Ayase was his very first friend, so he respects her, and Ayase was incredibly important to him. After receiving the ball, Gigi complimented Okarun's pass and expressed amazement at how important Ayase was to him and how much Okarun respected her. But in his own case, Gigi admitted that he truly loved Ayase's face and personality, which flustered Okarun, causing him to become jealous and shout, "Me too." Gigi was puzzled by this and exclaimed that Okarun had just said he respected Ayase, to which Okarun replied that he respected Ayase, plus more, prompting Gigi to declare it unfair and add that he would plus his affection too, stating he also loved Ayase's eyes, thus claiming victory. But Okarun refused to back down and countered that he would also plus his feelings, saying he loved Ayase's mouth, therefore claiming victory himself, to which Gigi objected that it didn't count. This caused Okarun to shout that Gigi couldn't disregard his statement, so Gigi argued that since he had first mentioned loving Ayase's face, Okarun's declaration shouldn't be discounted, to which Okarun retorted that if that were the case, then Gigi's love for Ayase's eyes shouldn't count either, but Gigi insisted that his declaration did count. Gigi then pointed out that he was Ayase's lifelong friend, therefore claiming victory, and struck a pose, while Okarun seethed with frustration. While thinking of a possible rebuttal, Okarun suddenly remembered the time he accidentally kissed Ayase, causing him to blush and cover his face in overwhelming delight while declaring his victory, which startled Gigi and prompted him to ask what was wrong, shouting that Okarun couldn't just claim half a victory, to which Okarun embarrassedly tried to explain, but eventually agreed and apologized, further puzzling Gigi. On the other hand, we shift to Ayase relaxing in the hot spring, where she contemplates whether the two are getting along, noting that Gigi was Okarun's first male friend, and if she were there, she would only cause trouble, so it was better that she left for Okarun's sake. While Ayase soaks in the hot spring, we are shown extremely creepy people secretly peeking at the entrance of the hot spring, their eyes fixed on her. Afterwards, we return to Okarun and Gigi playing soccer, where Gigi comments while panting that Okarun is truly stubborn, but he admits that Okarun has guts, to which Okarun responds, also out of breath, that they're still on and he won't give up. Suddenly, Gigi invites Okarun for a friendly handshake, which Okarun readily agrees to and extends his hand while saying that's good, but instead of a handshake, he receives a headlock from Gigi, who declares that he's caught him, causing Okarun to shout that it's bullshit and that Ayase hates this kind of cheating, while Gigi yells for him to admit defeat, to which Okarun responds with a resolute never, asking if Gigi really thinks he'll give up, irritating Gigi with his persistence. As the two roughhouse, Okarun notices something, promptly asking Gigi to stop and look at what he's seeing, which puzzles Gigi and causes him to look as well. While observing the front of Gigi's house, Okarun points something out and asks if it doesn't seem odd, confusing Gigi about what he's referring to, so Okarun tells him to look beside the entrance and questions whether there should be a room protruding there. The eyes of both widen as Gigi realizes that it is indeed strange, so they quickly enter the house to investigate it thoroughly. Gigi comments that he had never noticed it before, and that if you look at it from the outside, there's no doubt that something is there, so there must be something behind this wall. Gigi attempts to knock on the wall to check if it's solid, and Okarun hears that the other side is hollow, prompting Gigi to ask if they should break down the wall to get inside. Gigi retrieves a tool for breaking down walls from their storage room under the stairs, causing Okarun to question if he's sure about this, to which Gigi responds that it's dicey and it's a rental, but it needs to be done. Gigi grabs a sledgehammer here and states that there must be a reason for what happened to his parents. Gigi swings the sledgehammer towards the wall, and after one powerful swing, he creates a hole large enough for him and Okarun to peek through. The two exchange glances, and when they look inside this hidden room, they see an abundance of paper talismans scattered throughout the interior. The two were utterly shocked upon witnessing this spectacle, and Gigi inquired about its nature and their potential course of action, to which Okarun responded by questioning how he could possibly possess such knowledge. For the time being, they resolved to await Ayase's return home, as recklessly entering the room would be fraught with peril. Abruptly, the sound of Gigi's doorbell ringing startled them, and they surmised that Ayase had returned, prompting Gigi to hastily dash towards the door while exclaiming that the timing was impeccable. As he opened the door, he immediately began to exclaim about their incredible discovery, but upon fully revealing the entrance, Okarun stared in shock, for it was not Ayase who had arrived, but rather a group of elderly women with unsettling faces. Meanwhile, at the hot springs, Ayase began to experience a slight dizziness, prompting her to stand up, and as she rose from the steaming water, she remarked that the walls were surprisingly high for an open-air bath, lamenting that a view would have enhanced the experience. Suddenly, the exit door creaked open, accompanied by a comment about someone already being present, causing Ayase to swiftly submerge herself to conceal her body, only to discover that 5 middle-aged men with disconcerting expressions had entered, remarking on Ayase's beauty. The men began to wet their bodies, which puzzled Ayase, and one of the men commented that she looked very young, asking if she had come to the mixed-use hot springs alone, which shocked Ayase. While showing the nearly illegible signage, Ayase reasoned that the sign was basically unreadable. The men were now submerging themselves in the hot springs, commenting on how good it felt to relax there, and how nice it would be to have a beer. As Ayase looked at them, she thought in panic about what she should do, wanting to leave, but with the men blocking the exit. Ayase closed her eyes in irritation, thinking that she needed to leave because her mind was becoming fuzzy. Suddenly, one of the men asked her if she knew about gators, which confused Ayase, who asked if he meant the reptile, to which the man laughed and said that wasn't the type of gator he was referring to, explaining that they often appeared in mixed-use hot springs and targeted naked women. The men submerged themselves up to their noses and began approaching Ayase, while one of them called them gators. Ayase's shock at this situation was evident, and she angrily thought about how bad her predicament was, wondering if she could fight so many of them using her powers. As the gators approached her, she remembered hearing once that if you defeat the leader of a wolf pack, the others will scatter. So she quickly aimed her hands at one of the men and thought that if she could levitate the one she believed to be the leader, maybe the others would run away. However, she couldn't do it, and one of the men reached her, immediately grabbing both of her hands and lifting them up, causing Ayase to panic because she was too lightheaded and couldn't activate her powers. As she closed her eyes, the snake fountain behind her suddenly shattered, and it seemed to land precisely on the man's neck, appearing to bite him, which caused him to fall. Those soaking in the hot springs cried out that the water was extremely hot, and as one of the men's companions was drowning, the others wondered what he had done and if he had touched some weird place. Ayase quickly tried to leave the hot springs, but was immediately noticed by some of the men there, and fortunately, they were struck by falling walls. One of the men shouted for them to be careful because the walls were collapsing and ordered the others to get out of the water immediately. Ayase swiftly sprinted away while exclaiming that she truly couldn't comprehend what was transpiring, but this was her chance to escape. However, she suddenly tripped and fell, realizing that one of the men had grabbed her ankle. The man flashed her a creepy grin, while concern was evident on her face. Abruptly, the man seemed startled and glanced ahead, releasing her and beginning to flee from her. As Ayase turned to look in front of her, she saw the wall near the exit door collapsing. A large portion of the wall crashed down, striking the man who had attempted to capture Ayase. And fortunately, the door was open, sparing Ayase from being hit. Ayase was shocked and amazed by what she witnessed, letting out a whoa. Her reaction was due to the fact that as the walls of the hot springs collapsed, they revealed a breathtakingly beautiful view, prompting her to comment on its splendor. A voice from the side caught her attention, remarking that sometimes a rundown hot springs bath wasn't so bad, and that one could be quite lucky at times. When she turned to see who it was, she was surprised to find Turbo Granny relaxing in the hot spring as well. Startled, Ayase asked what she was doing there, to which Turbo Granny replied not to underestimate her, explaining that when Seiko mentioned Gigi's address, she realized it was hot springs territory, so she had secretly slipped into Ayase's backpack. Ayase sheepishly responded that Turbo Granny could have just accompanied her normally. Afterwards, the two of them went to the locker room, and while Ayase was changing clothes, she asked Turbo Granny what they should do about the building. Turbo Granny replied that they should forget about it since it was already destroyed, and she hadn't done anything to it. Meanwhile, the men were struggling to climb out, wondering what had happened. As they attempted to surface, an angry voice suddenly shouted, demanding to know who was responsible for the destruction. It turned out to be several local men, who pointed at the other men and asked if they were the culprits. They quickly recognized the men as part of the Keto family and angrily questioned if those bastards were causing trouble again. The men who had tried to attack Ayase recognized the newcomers as members of the Chamber of Commerce and immediately fled, despite being naked. The Chamber of Commerce members gave chase, shouting that they should take them to the police. Ayase, carrying Turbo Granny in her bag, irritatedly commented that those men were scumbags and should be locked up for life, while Turbo Granny expressed enjoyment of her bath. As Ayase began walking back to Gigi's house, she thanked Turbo Granny for saving her. Turbo Granny asked who had saved her, explaining that the abilities of this vessel had acted on their own accord, to which Ayase responded that it might be so. Ayase also asked if Turbo Granny had seen Gigi's house, and, in her capacity as Turbo Granny, what she thought was happening there since Isa hadn't seen anything. Turbo Granny, while drowsy, answered that the place was surely evil, which caught Isa's attention. Turbo Granny stated that the place was soaked in human blood. Meanwhile, returning to Okaroon and Gigi's situation, Okaroon was puzzled while Gigi watched with a smile as the group of women who had arrived earlier gossiped about an idiot family in the corner house, remarking that the people there didn't even say hello and that it really stank. The women began lounging in Gigi's living room, bringing an abundance of food to share while they conversed. The woman with an afro and pearl jewelry emphasized that the land belonged to them, stressing them, and that people with no idea about common courtesy needed to be taught. Suddenly, this woman called Gigi Jean and seriously told them not to just stand there, but to sit down and eat some sweets, to which Gigi happily expressed gratitude. The woman added that it was good for Gigi to be sociable, and thanks to her warm-heartedness, Gigi didn't have to pay rent. Gigi scratched his head in embarrassment while profusely thanking her. The woman continued, saying that life was difficult when one's parents were unwell, and if it weren't for them, Gigi would be on the streets with nothing to hold on to. Another woman agreed, stating that Gigi should know to be grateful. Okaroon approached Gigi and whispered, asking who these people were. Gigi explained that the house was a rental, and they weren't charging him while his parents were in the hospital. He introduced them to Okaroon as the Keto family, the landlords, and expressed gratitude for allowing him to continue living in the house. It turned out that the two of them had covered the hole with a poster, and upon hearing that these were the landlords, Okaroon realized the severity of what they had done to the wall earlier. Gigi suggested they feign ignorance if the hole was noticed. Suddenly, the woman with the afro and pearl jewelry commented that Gigi had disappeared without permission, so Gigi explained that his buddy, pointing at Okaroon, wanted to hang out, so he went to see him, asking if that wasn't allowed. The woman then said she knew Gigi wouldn't do it again, but asked if he was planning to bring spirit mediums or anyone else there again, to which Gigi nervously smiled, while the woman's companions began shouting, demanding an answer and insisting it wasn't a laughing matter, and they claimed there was no such thing as ghosts, called him a dummy, and accused him of trying to tarnish the good name of their property. Gigi denied this, putting his arm around Okaroon, and asked if he looked like a spirit medium, stating that those people were all scam artists. The woman then showed a gun, informing them that she had a hunting license and that there were many unfortunate accidents in the mountains. She gave an example, pointing her gun at the two, saying that while chasing a wild boar, by chance a person could suddenly pass by. Nervously, Gigi told her to take it easy, stating that even with a license, pointing a gun at a person could get her arrested by the police. Speaking of police, a police officer suddenly entered the house and greeted them. The officer's companions commented that it was a mess because they had been caught by the Chamber of Commerce. It turned out that men accompanying the officer are the men who had tried to grab Isa, and one explained here that if it weren't for Officer Tsuru, they would have been in big trouble. Another added that the place they went to was so run down they couldn't believe it, and they needed to find another location. Officer Tsuru knelt down and explained that if they went too far, he wouldn't know what to do, and dealing with the aftermath wasn't easy. The woman with the afro hair asked the men where they had come from, to which one replied it was a secret, calling her mother. Another added that if any family member got arrested, Tsuru would be responsible. A man in a white sweater put his arm around Gigi and asked where he had gone. Gigi nervously replied that he had visited a friend. However, the man seriously told him not to lie, saying that the thing he hated most was liars. Gigi assured him that he would never lie. The man also noticed Okaroon and asked who he was. Gigi introduced Okaroon as a good buddy who wanted to hang out. The man stared intently at Okaroon and suddenly inquired about Gigi's favorite soccer team, which perplexed Okaroon. The man explained that, as Gigi's good buddy, shouldn't he be aware of this information? When Gigi attempted to respond, the man promptly silenced him. Okaroon was unexpectedly put on the hot seat as the man began questioning whether he and Gigi had only recently met, and if Okaroon wasn't a close friend, it would be peculiar why Gigi had brought him to this house. After a brief moment, Okarun answered that Gigi's favorite soccer team was Saint Germain, causing both the man and Gigi to stare at him. And following the intense interrogation, the man suddenly smiled and remarked that he apparently did know after all, confirming that he was indeed Gigi's close friend. Gigi whispered, asking how Okarun had known that, so Okarun gestured towards the poster they had used to cover the hole they had made, which turned out to be a poster of the Saint Germain soccer team, impressing Gigi with his quick thinking and earning his praise. The woman interjected, suddenly mentioning that a girl had also visited, and inquired when she would return, causing Gigi to feign ignorance and ask who she was referring to, which the men quickly noticed, prompting Gigi to nervously state that he didn't know who they were talking about. The woman turned to him and seriously declared that he had already lied to them. On the other hand, let's shift our focus to Ayase, who was walking and spotted a man doing a forearm stand in front of a shrine, which Ayase recognized as the shrine where they worshipped the Tsukinoko snake monster, and she wondered what the man was doing. The man noticed her and asked if he could be of assistance, startling Ayase, who inquired if this was indeed the Tsukinoko shrine, to which the man agreed. The man stood up normally and explained that she had caught him in an awkward moment, revealing that he actually aspired to become a boottuber, and invited Ayase to enter. Ayase couldn't believe that the man would simply show her the interior of something so important, to which the man concurred, adding that he couldn't profit from it anyway, and expressing his wish to become a boottuber. Ayase smiled with delight and expressed her excitement, stating that she would return later with Okarun. Upon entering the shrine, a man showed them a snake skin, causing Ayase to fall silent and remark that it didn't resemble a Tsukinoko, to which the man agreed. The man explained that according to the documents still in the shrine's possession, a dragon flying through the skies will cast a rainbow, and the wrath of the mountain will swallow up the village. He stated that the people in this region used to worship a large snake, and when the giant snake dwelling in the volcano grew hungry, the volcano would erupt, or so it was believed in the past. He added that during those times, people would offer a child from the village as a sacrifice to the serpent to satiate its hunger, and because of this, there had been no volcanic eruptions for 200 years, and they had benefited from the hot springs, according to legend. Furthermore, he pointed out that what Ayase was looking at, which resembled an umbilical cord, was likely the shed skin of the great serpent, and now they pray to the skin of the great snake and receive protection from volcanic eruptions, to their understanding. When Ayase inquired about the Tsukinoko, the man explained that his father had said if they called it a mythical beast, they could attract tourists, causing Ayase to mutter a curse under her breath. However, because of this, the man continued, people like Ayase come to visit this place, and the legend surrounding this great serpent is a creation of humans. People who are deprived of the ability to think due to fear will believe and do things like human sacrifices, and this man was here to prevent the repetition of such mistakes. He also pointed out that what he truly desired was to perform headstands on BooTube, prompting Ayase to suggest, with a poker face, that he could perhaps share the story he had just recounted on BooTube instead, which surprised the man with its ingenuity. Following this interaction, Ayase resumed her journey back to Gigi's house, contemplating that there wasn't actually a Tsukinoko after all. She was certain that Okarun would be disappointed by this revelation, but speculated that he might still appreciate aspects like the local folklore. Upon arriving at the front of Gigi's house, she wondered if the two had become closer. She joyfully opened the door and announced her return, inquiring if they had encountered any ghosts or goblins. But her smile quickly faded as she observed the situation inside the house. She spotted the men who had attempted to grab her earlier at the hot springs, now clad in what appeared to be loincloths, with one holding a large fan and another a baton, while she also noticed Gigi and Okarun lying on the floor, battered and bloodied. The woman with the afro hair and pearl jewelry commented upon seeing her, stating that at last all their offerings had arrived, and if so, she inquired whether they should commence the festival. Ayase's eyes widened in shock at this scene, her speechlessness evident in the face of such a startling spectacle. Ayase couldn't believe her eyes as she stared at her beaten friends, and she swiftly sprang into action, delivering a powerful kick to the neck of the man holding the baton, which connected solidly and sent him crashing to the ground. She then aimed her left hand at the bespectacled man who was attempting to charge at her, and using her power, she gripped his face, pulled him towards her, and readied her knee. The impact was so forceful that it shook the man's world, shattering his nose, while Isa winced in pain as her knee was also injured in the process. Two more men were charging at her, wielding a hammer and a fan, with the hammer-wielding man shouting boobies. But before they could reach Isa, she hurled a stool and a table at them using her powers, striking them in their faces and causing them to halt and tumble abruptly. Isa followed up with a nutcracker move on one of the men, causing him to writhe in pain. But unfortunately, another bespectacled man managed to bear hug her, pulling his head back from Isa in preparation. Without delay, the man forcefully delivered a headbutt to the back of Isa's neck, causing her to gasp and gradually lose consciousness due to the solid impact on her nape. The man put her in a headlock, seemingly trying to calm her while saying she was a good girl and that she didn't need to be afraid. Isa was being choked and couldn't breathe, but fortunately, Turbo Granny suddenly emerged from her backpack, shouting at the man embracing her, calling him a damn turd nugget, which startled him. The man stepped back, accidentally stepping on a bottle on the floor, which caused him to slip, and as he fell, his neck hit an overturned table, making him clutch his neck in pain, while Isa gasped for air after being released. Turbo Granny shouted that she had been enjoying a peaceful cat nap and demanded to know who was trying to squash her, while Isa thanked her profusely. Isa prepared to face the remaining opponents and told Turbo Granny that if she could help, it would be greatly appreciated, to which Turbo Granny replied that she wasn't there to help her and asked who these people were, causing Isa to shout that that's exactly what she wanted to know. The men Isa had knocked down regained consciousness, and she told them to calm down, pointing both her hands at them and yelling at them not to come closer. She demanded that they leave this house and depart immediately. Suddenly, the woman with the afro hair and pearl jewelry charged forward, delivering a solid kick to her right arm, which sent her flying. While commenting on how much that hurt, Isa countered by aiming her hand at the woman and attempting to throw a TV at her, but the woman easily dodged it using her martial arts know-how, surprising Isa and prompting her to comment if this woman was for real. The woman charged at her again, and while executing a combo, she shouted the name Jennifer Lopez, then kicked Isa in the body to send her flying. And after performing a snake stance, she yelled Anaconda and delivered a double punch to Isa's body as a follow-up, which sent her crashing through the wall into the room that Gigi and Okarun had discovered earlier. One of the men cheered for the woman, calling her mother, and proclaiming her as the most powerful old lady of the Keto family. The Bruce Lee-like woman inquired about the identity of the girl, noting that she seemed to be using some kind of strange power earlier. Isa caught the woman's attention by immediately standing up after enduring the attack, and she levitated some debris from the wall while asking Turbo Granny who this old lady was, to which Turbo Granny replied that she was just a tough old broad, prompting Isa to comment that there was no such thing as an old lady that tough, but Turbo Granny pointed out that there was one in their house, causing Isa to agree. One of the old lady's male companions shouted that there were floating objects next to the girl and a talking cat. And while Isa was asking what room they had entered and how creepy it was, the old lady questioned who she was, stating that she didn't look like a spirit medium. The old lady clasped her hands as if in prayer and commented that since Isa was disrupting their festival, it seemed she had come to destroy their village, adding that the Keto family had been protecting the village for generations, and they wouldn't allow her to do as she pleased. Isa pointed out that they had intruded into someone else's house, disrupted everything there, and asked how they could speak like that, demanding that they leave the house immediately. The old lady told her to chill and asked who she thought was responsible for her safe hot spring bath, explaining that it was due to the Keto family offering sacrifices to the Great Serpent for the past 200 years, which shocked Isa. This, she claimed, was the reason why the volcano hadn't erupted, and they were blessed with hot springs from the Great Serpent. If they hadn't protected that land, the area would have long been submerged in magma. Isa shouted, "Wait a minute," and asked if she had said they were giving offerings, to which the old lady replied that she believed so, and began to explain that there used to be an altar for human sacrifices in that place, and perhaps its form had changed with the times, but she shouldn't be mistaken because this house was an altar, and the Keto family invited offerings to this house and gave them to the Great Serpent. Isa couldn't believe this, and she realized what had really happened to Gigi's parents. The old lady commented again on how lucky they were, as they had obtained exactly 3 offerings, and they had almost fallen short. Isa began to sink into the ground where she stood, and her surroundings suddenly changed as the old lady declared that the Great Serpent was famished. Before long, strange roots suddenly emerged around Isa, causing her mouth to open in fear and bewilderment. Isa's jaw dropped as she asked, "What the hell is this?" and commented that it was bad, noting that the floor had turned to sand, while Turbo Granny made a side comment wondering if these people wanted to compete. Isa reached for the wall, saying they needed to get out of that room immediately, so using her powers, she gripped both sides of the hole and lifted herself up, but the Keto family was waiting for her outside, and even though she had a force field from her powers when she approached them, they easily pushed her back into the room. The old lady shouted that they wouldn't let her pass that threshold, and that quicksand would swallow her, making her an offering to the Great Serpent Lord. Isa's entire body was almost submerged in the sand, and she commented that this was seriously bad, so she shouted at the lazy Turbo Granny to do something. Fortunately, the battered Okaroon and Gigi managed to stand up, and they pushed the old lady and the men into the creepy room with Isa, using a stool and table. The 2 of them piled on top to make them sink faster into the quicksand inside the Great Snake Lord's domain, causing them to scream in fear. Isa was also surprised by this, and Okaroon quickly called out to her to reach for his hand, saying this was their chance, while Gigi shouted for her to use her powers. Isa managed to grasp Okaroon's hand and exclaimed, "Nice one," as they had saved themselves. However, the quicksand's downward pull suddenly intensified, and it turned out that a large hole had formed at the bottom of the quicksand, causing them all to fall through simultaneously. Before long, they crashed onto the roof of a house. Upon impact, Isa groaned in pain and asked if Okaroon was okay, to which Okaroon replied, somewhat painfully, that he was. Isa looked up at where they had fallen from and shouted, "Are they kidding her?" and wondered how they would get out of that place. When she peered down, the numerous houses below caught her attention, and she exclaimed in shock, asking what they were and if it wasn't mind-boggling, while Okaroon also questioned how those houses ended up underground. Gigi shouted for help from Isa, causing her to turn around and quickly search for his location. Looking to one side of the roof, they saw him hanging from a gutter and shouting that he was falling. So Isa told him not to worry and that they would help him. Unfortunately, the gutter Gigi was holding on suddenly gave way, and he began to fall, prompting Isa to quickly try to use her powers to reach him, but she couldn't grab him in time. However, it turned out that Gigi's landing wasn't as dire as expected, and he fell onto a soft substance. The 3 of them were surprised that Gigi had landed safely, but it turned out that he had fallen on a part of the body of a terrifying monster that resembled a worm with countless teeth. All members of the Keto family assumed the snake's stance, and the old lady shouted that it was the Great Snake Lord, declaring how blessed they were by its arrival, and that the Keto family were its emissaries, revealing that they were posing like that in case the Great Snake Lord might eat them, while others commented in their minds that this was what it looked like, as they had never seen it before. The old lady explained that Isa, Okaroon, and Gigi were the offerings they had brought for this occasion, and she hoped it wouldn't mistake them for members of the Keto family. Gigi was utterly shocked when he heard that this was the Great Snake Lord mentioned in the region's legend, while Isa couldn't believe it wasn't just a superstition. Turbo Granny emerged from her bag and stated that it was a karagari, prompting Isa to ask what a karagari was and express surprise that Turbo Granny knew what the creature was, while Okaroon answered her question, saying it was a Mongolian death worm. He explained that some say it inhabits the Gobi Desert, describing it as a giant man-eating earthworm cryptid. But all the stories, he said, claim they are 1.5 to 2 meters long, and he had never heard of a death worm this large. It was then that they realized, with a questioning tone, that for the past 200 years, the Keto family had been giving offerings to an earthworm cryptid. The old lady joyfully shouted for the great snake lord to devour the three, which irritated Isa, causing her to curse at the old lady while calling her an old hag, and the old lady added that she should stand up and miss on the scene. Isa told them that the creature they were worshipping wasn't a god, but merely a man-eating earthworm. Yet the Keto family continued their ritual while the old lady shouted for it to calm its fury. However, to everyone's surprise, the earthworm began devouring some of the Keto family members, leaving Okaroon and the others stunned and speechless at what they witnessed, while Isa shouted that the earthworm was eating the Keto family, and the old lady ran away, exclaiming, "Ah shit." We were shown here just how massive this earthworm was, its entire body seemingly coiled around the pile of houses beneath Gigi's house. And at this point, Gigi fearfully asked what they should do, as there was no way they could defeat such a creature, while Isa added in panic that their situation was definitely bad news. Isa decided they should hide inside the house they were standing on, to which Gigi quickly agreed, stating they didn't want to be outside. Gigi hurried the other two to enter, so the earthworm wouldn't see them, but when he turned to see what they were doing, he saw them seemingly writhing in pain from a headache. Gigi grew concerned and quickly approached them, inquiring about their problem and if they were all right, but as he drew near, Okaroon suddenly stood up and threw a right hook at him. Fortunately, he managed to dodge it, but Okaroon began to destroy the room and even shattered one of the windows, starting to scream, which puzzled Gigi and prompted him to ask what was happening. Gigi felt a strong tremor from beneath them, and when he looked to see what was happening on the floor, he quickly realized it was bad news. So he immediately grabbed Okaroon and Isa and moved them to a safe place, which allowed them to evade the approaching earthworm. Gigi turned to look at the creature, and as he did so, he noticed a mug, which he quickly grabbed and attempted to use by throwing it at a part of the floor, and when it landed, the monstrous earthworm immediately devoured it. At this point, Gigi realized that the earthworm was reacting to sound and could locate them using sound. However, it apparently didn't react to their voices, and it might only hear sounds that reverberate off the walls of that house. When he turned back to Okaroon, he saw him about to take his own life with a pair of scissors. But before he could stab the scissors into his neck, Gigi managed to grab them and shouted at him to stop, asking what he was doing, to which Okaroon angrily replied not to interfere and to let him die. Gigi was shocked and, while asking why he would do such a thing, he remembered something. In the next scene, we suddenly flashed back to the time when Gigi saw his parents trying to take their own lives by hanging themselves from their balcony. He felt an extraordinary chill and immediately grabbed a cutter from his drawer and climbed up to the balcony where his parents were to cut the ropes coiled around their necks. Fortunately, he managed to reach them while they were still alive, but when he checked on them, his mother grabbed his face and said the same thing Okaroon had said, to let them die. After that, we returned to the present where Gigi was shouting, asking Okaroon why and what his problem was. And as he was asking this, he also heard Isa say to let her die, so he turned to her and saw her holding a large shard of glass, which she had pointed at her stomach. Gigi tried to shout at Isa to stop, but it was too late, and Isa managed to stab herself with the shard. However, fortunately, it turned out that Turbo Granny was in her stomach sleeping. Instead of stabbing herself, Isa had stabbed the sleeping Turbo Granny, who calmly commented that she had been stabbed, while Gigi was shocked and said that was a nice one, but also asked if she was okay, at which point Turbo Granny realized what had happened to her and let out a cry of pain. Turbo Granny shouted at Gigi to tie up Okaroon, and Gigi, having found some yarn, immediately did so, apologizing to Okaroon as he tied him up. While he was tying him up, Isa repeatedly attempted to stab herself, but thankfully, Turbo Granny's body was at the tip of the blade, and she told Gigi that when he was done, he should tie up this dumb bitch, calling her a dumbass. Gigi did this as well, also apologizing while doing so. Gigi exclaimed, "Damn it, and asked what was happening and why those two were trying to take their own lives, to which Turbo Granny replied, "Psychic waves," puzzling him. Turbo Granny explained that psychic waves were being sent to encourage the people in that house to take their own lives. Gigi was shocked to learn this, realizing that this was the cause of what had happened to his parents. But he also asked why he was okay, which made Turbo Granny wonder and ask if he hadn't noticed it yet. While they were talking, Isa used her powers to gather some glass shards and immediately sent them towards Gigi's face, causing him to shout for her to stop. Gigi was forced to shield his face, but unfortunately, one of his palms was impaled, and another shard cut his swollen eye, sending him flying. When he looked at the window, he saw the earthworm poised to lunge at him, causing his jaw to drop in fear. And as he turned to Isa, he saw her preparing to end her life again, with Turbo Granny helpless as Isa was using her powers on her as well. He also glanced at the frenzied Okaroon, trying to break free from his bindings. And at this point, he began to lose hope as his vision darkened. Nevertheless, he gathered his courage and resolve, quickly blocking the shard Isa was pointing at herself, then picked her up, doing the same for Okaroon and Turbo Granny, and swiftly ran. His footsteps on the floor caused the earthworm to repeatedly attempt to devour him, but due to his speed, he managed to outrun it. They made it out of the house, but he hadn't anticipated stairs, causing him to misstep and lose his grip on Isa and Okaroon, resulting in his fall. He winced from the pain of his injuries, but quickly told himself not to give up now. And as he was saying this, he noticed the two trying to jump from the stairs, so he immediately stood up and ran up the stairs to stop them. He shouted at them, pleading for them to return to normal, but Okaroon continued to yell for him to let them die. When Gigi looked ahead, it turned out that the giant earthworm was right in front of them, ready to devour them. Concern and fear were visible on Gigi's face as he stared at this monster, and before long, he closed his eyes and accepted that this was their end. But when he expected the monster to attack, it didn't, so he peeked to see what had happened. And as he looked, his jaw dropped in shock as he saw the familiar monster of a tall man with a deformed face. As this creepy monster emerged, the space around it seemed to become distorted, and Gigi screamed as if he knew this monster all too well. Gigi suddenly turned to Isa and Okaroon because they immediately told him to release them, as they didn't know why, but the two of them were apparently back in their right minds, and Okaroon even apologized for what had happened earlier. After that, Isa blushed and was left speechless, then asked anyway what was in front of them, and Okaroon added a question asking if that was the reason why they had become sane again. The creepy man suddenly turned to them, and his head rotated 180 degrees, causing them to shudder and become speechless with disgust. Turbo Granny immediately shouted at them not to look it in the eye, which made Gigi turn to her in confusion. Turbo Granny explained that this creature was the evil eye, and its gaze supposedly drove people insane and led them to take their own lives. Isa questioned the mention of taking their own lives and realized that it was similar to the psychic waves of the worm they were currently fighting. Turbo Granny then pointed out that the curse of the evil eye and the psychic suicide waves canceled out each other's effects. Isa commented that she didn't really understand it, but the worm had stopped moving, so she immediately ordered Okaroon to attack, causing Okaroon to transform and comment that his kid gloves were off, quickly charging towards the worm's neck and easily cutting it off using his javelin body throw. Isa cheered because he had managed to cut off its head so easily, but she also wondered where Okaroon had gone. However, the giant earthworm grew a new head, causing Isa to gape in shock and curse while shouting that it wasn't fair, and they began to be attacked by both the earthworm and the evil eye. While running, Gigi asked the evil eye if it was true that it wasn't responsible for what happened to his parents. The evil eye caught up with him and lay on top of his body while staring into his eyes. Because of this, Turbo Granny shouted at him not to look into its eyes, but it was too late and Gigi was already affected by the curse of the evil eye, and we were suddenly transported to a time in a field where 3 children were happily dancing with their hands raised. On the other hand, it appears that they were being watched by another child who was trapped in a makeshift cell underground, And we can see here that he was very thin and dirty, and he couldn't get out because the door where he was staying was blocked from the outside. After watching the children, this child tried to imitate their steps, and while doing so, he collapsed on the floor, probably due to hunger, fatigue, and various other reasons. Before he finally closed his eyes, he remembered once more the moment he watched the happy children dancing. So he smiled with joy, even though he had never experienced dancing and having fun with them. In the next scene, a massive disaster struck their area where a volcano erupted and its magma spread to nearby places. Fear and anxiety were visible on the face of the ragged child when he saw this. And it turns out that this child was one of those sacrificed to the great serpent. And if we recall what the Keto family said about 200 years of continuous sacrifices, they were likely responsible for this as well. This seems to be confirmed when we see the old woman with afro hair and pearl jewelry praying together with other Keto family members while this was happening. Before being completely burned and toasted by the magma, the child thought that even just once, he wished he could have played with other children. After that, following the eruption of the volcano, we see here the burned body of the poor child left behind on this sacrificial altar. A mother and child saw him, and they noticed that he seemed to still be alive because he appeared to be moving while a crow was pecking at his face. In the next scene, we see the same child looking healthier, while staring at a family happily eating their dinner. While they were eating, the child looked at him with a puzzled expression, and before long, he suddenly choked his father while shouting that there was a ghost there, which irritated his father because he was eating while the child was pointing out that the ghost was right in front of them. This child hugged his father in fear while saying this, so his father laughed at him and said there was no such thing. As the child, now a ghost, tried to dance the steps he had once watched other children perform while he was imprisoned, in an attempt to cheer up the frightened child, he was suddenly enveloped by an eerie aura while doing so, and after a few moments, his face showed surprise and confusion, while the child began to cry loudly while looking at something. It turns out that the child's parents had hanged themselves in front of him, and he could do nothing about it. The ghost noticed something below him, and he felt that there was something underneath them. Someone entered the family's house, and a man there asked what they would do with the child. And it turns out that this was the Keto family, when we were shown the old lady with afro hair and pearl jewelry, who said that they would make the child an offering to the great snake lord, and that they would bury him along with their house. The ghost's eyes widened at this, and he realized that this woman was the same one who had made him a sacrifice. The old lady held one of the children and said that she felt sorry for him, but that they would do this to protect the village and that this was their duty as members of the Keto family. And as she was saying this, they actually began to bury the entire house, including the child, with earth, and this was apparently the reason why there were so many houses underneath Gigi's house now. While the Keto family was doing this, they tied the poor child to a chair inside the house, causing him to cry in fear. And here the ghost child tried to save him, but because he was a ghost, he couldn't untie the child from the chair, so he just cried in frustration. In the end, the ghost child thought that they couldn't escape what they had done, and he said he would kill these people. The ghost child began to merge with the crying child while saying that he would kill them all, telling them to look at him and stare at him closely. It turns out that this was Evil Eye, whom Gigi always saw, and this was where his story as a yokai in that house began. In the outside world, Gigi, still under Evil Eye's control, was shown. Turbo Granny shouted at him to snap out of it, while Ayase, attempting to pull Evil Eye away from his body, said that this wasn't the time to mess around with that creature. However, no matter how much she pulled using her powers, Evil Eye refused to let go of Gigi. Gigi returned to normal and ordered Ayase to stop, saying that Evil Eye was different and not a bad guy, which surprised Ayase, causing her to ask if that was true. Gigi explained that Evil Eye had been fighting alone for a very long time, and since then, he had been suffering. Gigi jumped down from the house where they were, so Ayase tried to stop him and asked where he was going. As he descended, Gigi asked Evil Eye if he was correct that he was underneath them. While chasing after him, Ayase shouted for him to wait and asked what had gotten into his head. Ayase noticed, as she looked at where they were running, that the constructions were becoming more dated, and she couldn't believe it when she realized that the houses there had been built across generations. Gigi continued running downwards, telling Evil Eye to hang on and that he would set him free. Before long, he reached the door where Evil Eye was first imprisoned, and after catching his breath, he began removing the wood blocking the door and quickly opened it. Upon opening it, he saw Evil Eye's burned body and several paper talismans stuck to the wall behind it, and he began to approach. Isa managed to catch up with him, and, while panting, asked what his problem was and what this place was. Gigi was taken aback as he remembered the happy Evil Eye dancing to cheer up the child who could see it, realizing that it meant he had been imprisoned here since then. When he thought about how he had been protecting him and watching over him since he arrived, helping him, Gigi began to tear up. Turbo Granny tried to stop him from approaching, telling him not to sympathize with him because he was the kind of yokai that pushed people to take their own lives, to which Gigi replied that she was wrong, and that they were just like Evil Eye, and even if his form was different, he wasn't any different from them. Turbo Granny became irritated and pointed out that they were not the same, and that he didn't understand the situation, while Isa tried to calm them down while asking what was happening. Electricity seemed to surge throughout the earthworm's body and went everywhere, hitting Isa and the others, giving them an extraordinary electric shock throughout their bodies, causing them to fall and kneel. After the shock, Isa tried to stand up while asking what that was, and Gigi said that everything had turned white for a second. As Isa touched the ground to stand up, she felt a sticky substance like slime, which puzzled her. It turned out that it came from the earthworm's mouth, which began vomiting that substance down towards them. They tried to stand up, but when they touched it, they realized they were in a bad situation because he was extremely sticky. Turbo Granny got annoyed with them and called them clumsy turds, so Isa responded irritatedly, telling her to be quiet and saying she thought she was supposed to bring them good luck, to which Turbo Granny explained that her good luck wasn't for anyone in particular and could also help their enemy, causing Isa to shout angrily, asking how that was helpful. Isa added, asking where Okarun was. And here we were shown Okarun sprawled out in one of the houses, shivering because his body was numb and he couldn't move anymore. They managed to remove the sticky substance, and Isa immediately attempted to use her powers to escape because they needed to, and she called out to Gigi and asked if he could hold on to her so they could flee, but when she turned to look at him, she saw that he appeared unconscious, kneeling there, which puzzled and worried her about what the problem might be. She tried calling his name to elicit a reaction, but he wasn't responding. Meanwhile, in Gigi's mind world, he saw Evil Eye from the time when he was imprisoned, emaciated to skin and bones. Upon seeing his situation, he apologized to him, explaining that he had been so filled with loathing that he became afraid and thought Evil Eye was to blame for everything that happened to him. But it turned out that he had just been here, full of suffering. Evil Eye attempted to speak, so Gigi approached to hear better. As he got closer, he told him that he wanted to play, and sadness was visible on Gigi's face when he heard this. Before long, Gigi decided that if that was the case, he would play with him, suggesting they all play together, and asked what game he would like to play. He said they would play here for as long as a lifetime, and he would hang out with him for as long as he wanted, to which Evil Eye smiled with joy and said, "You said it." After that, Evil Eye's soul began to behave strangely, starting to flow like an abstract form, and in the outside world, Gigi screamed loudly while clutching his head. Isa grew concerned for him, and we can see here that Gigi seems to be going mad while talking to Evil Eye, while Turbo Granny became even more irritated, calling him an idiot and warning that he couldn't trust a creature with an evil eye. Gigi continued screaming due to the strange sensation he was experiencing, and suddenly the earthworm sent another electric shock through them, causing them to fall again and stick to the sticky substance on the ground. It turns out that the giant monster was right above them, ready to attack. Concern was visible on Isa's face when she noticed this, so she immediately tried to get free from the sticky substance they were stuck to. And when she saw Gigi, his entire face was submerged in the substance while unconscious. The earthworm's mouth was getting closer and closer to them, and when it was about to reach them, Ayase just closed her eyes and accepted her fate. However, to her surprise, Gigi suddenly moved and forcefully punched the earthworm's head, causing it to lose its trajectory towards Ayase and slam into the ground. The force of Gigi's punch was enough to dent the face of the giant monster, and even Ayase couldn't believe what she was seeing. It turns out that even the earthworm's entire body felt the extraordinary punch delivered by Gigi as it began to thrash about. Gigi then commented in a strange voice that at long last, this body was his. And he said that using this body, he would kill all humans. And it appears that Gigi transformed here after his encounter with Evil Eye, and he seems that he has gained control over his entire body. Momo called out to Gigi, wondering if this was the power of the Evil Eye. From behind, Turbo Granny told her to prepare her psychic powers, or else they would die. Suddenly, the Evil Eye possessing Gigi's body executed a back kick, aiming at Momo. The kick was so powerful that it shattered a nearby pole. He approached her and pinned her against the wall with his foot. He was curious about the power Momo possessed while Turbo Granny complained since she was squeezed behind her. The Evil Eye asked if she was a yokai who had become a slave to that human. But Turbo Granny retorted, warning him to watch his language or she'd beat him up. Meanwhile, Momo called out to Gigi, asking him to snap out of it and searching for his usual perky self. The Evil Eye wondered who she was talking to. He declared that this vessel now belonged to him, and he would show her what true hell was like. Suddenly, he sensed that the Tsukinoko was about to interfere and use electrokinesis again. In response, the Evil Eye raised his left hand and seemed to create a barrier around himself and Momo to protect them from the electric shock. Momo couldn't believe what he had done. The Evil Eye revealed that this was a cursed house, and the long-standing resentment there would not disappear. He explained that it was made from the grudges of those sacrificed, and that they reject everything. Using his power, the Evil Eye gathered those grudges into a ball, which he kicked with tremendous force towards the Tsukinoko. The ball pierced through the death worm's body, and the Evil Eye repeatedly struck it with the grudge ball. He didn't stop attacking the Tsukinoko until it retreated underground. The Evil Eye, controlling the grudge ball with his foot, called the worm a bastard, scurrying away into the dirt. Inside, Ayase still couldn't believe what was happening. She wondered what had happened to her friend Gigi, while Turbo Granny became irritated at how slow she was. She commented that it seemed Seiko was right. When Ayase asked in what way her grandmother was right, she replied that Gigi was a prodigy. People with such powerful spiritual abilities are said to be extremely rare. Additionally, he was athletic to boot. Turbo Granny added that the Evil Eye targeted Gigi to use as a vessel. She admitted that even if she were to choose someone to possess, she would also select Gigi. Ayase couldn't accept this, stating that Gigi wasn't like this when they were in elementary school. Turbo Granny replied that everyone's spiritual powers awaken differently. She asked if Ayase herself hadn't only recently realized her ability to use powers. She then warned Momo to prepare for the worst, as her friend was no longer on their side. The Evil Eye glared at her menacingly, as Momo was now the next target. He kicked the grudge ball towards Momo, but Momo blocked it using her giant hand ability. The Evil Eye suddenly charged forward to punch her with tremendous force, causing both Momo and Turbo Granny to be thrown back. Not satisfied, the Evil Eye once again controlled the grudge ball to target Momo. However, Okarun intervened to block the attack. The Evil Eye hadn't expected this, while Momo was on the verge of tears, grateful for being saved. Okarun threatened that if the Evil Eye were to hit Momo, he wouldn't be able to get away with that. Okarun was knocked down by the force of the attack, causing Momo to worry for him. However, he quickly got up to carry Momo and escape. The Evil Eye used the grudge ball again to hit them, but Okarun passed through the wall using Turbo Granny's powers. The Evil Eye couldn't believe that despite being a yokai, Okarun was protecting humans. But Okarun threatened him again, saying he wouldn't let this go unpunished. Nevertheless, he quickly ran out carrying Momo. The Evil Eye continued his relentless attacks using the grudge ball, and as they escaped, Momo thanked Okarun for saving him. Okarun replied that they still had a big problem and pointed to something at the side. Okarun explained that Mongolian deathworms were known not only for their electric shock attacks, but also for spewing venom that weakens their victims. As they climbed the stairs, Isa became irritated and realized that it intended to hide underneath and attack them with poison. Okarun added that if they didn't escape now, they'd be dead. Momo wondered how, as it seemed impossible to leave because the way out was above and they couldn't reach it. And so Momo asked about the worm's weakness, to which Okarun replied that it was sunlight. He explained that underground dwellers and cryptids coexist with bacteria and germs, so they can't handle ultraviolet rays. Momo pondered how they could lure the giant creature out. She didn't know what to do, especially since they couldn't just leave Gigi like that. While looking up, Okarun mentioned that if it were just Isa, there might be a way for her to get out. Isa refused, saying there was no point in escaping alone. Okarun replied that it was the only thing they could do now. Besides, they were running out of time. If they could get her up there, she could throw down a rope or something to pull them out from inside. Momo asked, "What about Gigi?" noting that he didn't seem likely to listen to them. To this, Okarun replied, "He'll handle him." He then pleaded with Isa to help them by getting out first. And so Isa took his hand and looked him in the eye, trusting in his plan and abilities. She promised to save them and asked him to take care of Gigi. Okarun agreed and transformed again to use Turbo Granny's powers for their plan. Momo was confused when Okarun placed her on a sofa while he positioned himself underneath. Okarun explained that he would launch Momo as high as he could. Then Momo should launch herself from the sofa using her power to reach even higher. Momo was shocked by the plan, while Okarun told her to think of it as a multi-stage rocket. Momo commented that it was reckless and he might break his legs. Nevertheless, Okarun counted to 3 even though Momo wasn't ready. Using all his strength, Okarun propelled the terrified Momo towards the surface. And using her psychic powers, Momo launched herself to reach higher. However, she realized she wouldn't make it. Luckily, using her giant hand ability, she managed to grab hold and pull herself up. Okarun was pleased that the plan succeeded. Just as the Evil Eye arrived to confront him, the Evil Eye taunted that Okarun should be happy to die first. But Okarun retorted that, as he said, the Evil Eye wouldn't get away with what he's done. Inside Gigi's house, Momo searched for something to pull them up. Worried about not finding a rope, she needed something long. Spotting the curtain on the window, she pulled it down to use. She tore the fabric and divided it, tying it tightly to make a long rope that would reach Okarun below. Hurrying, she finished and threw it down the hole. Peering down, Momo was dismayed to find it was far too short and totally useless. She then calmed herself to think of another way to stop the poison and defeat the worm. While thinking, she remembered something from when she and Gigi were young, mentioning self-destruction. Momo stood up and searched for her phone, but it was gone. She then noticed some magazines on the floor. Picking them up one by one, she said she could use them. She opened the stove there and burned what she had collected. As a result, the whole house caught fire. Momo shouted that there was a fire and asked for somebody to call for the fire department. Soon, firefighters were seen arriving at the scene. She told Okarun to just hold on as she was going to rescue him. Back at the underground, we could see that parts of some houses in the area had been destroyed due to the intense battle between Okarun and the Evil Eye. The Evil Eye used its grudge ball again to hit Okarun, but he nimbly dodged the ball's trajectory. When the Evil Eye attempted to punch him in the face, Okarun quickly evaded its powerful attack. However, as he was escaping, the Evil Eye targeted him once more and hit him in the face with the grudge ball. This impact was visibly strong and it knocked Okarun to the ground. The force of the impact was so great that it even cracked the ground they were standing on. Seeing this, the Evil Eye prepared to punch him again, but Okarun swiftly rolled away to escape. Thanks to Turbo Granny's power within him, Okarun was able to move quickly during the fight. Although bloodied, Okarun remained determined to face and defeat the Evil Eye. But he was irritated by Okarun's bouncing around in an attempt to run away, but said it was fine. He He claimed to want to take the game seriously and use his entire body to the fullest. While standing, the evil eye was surprised to find his nose bleeding. Looking up, he identified the poison released by the worm as affecting his vessel. Therefore, he decided they should stop there. The evil eye once again threw the grudge ball at Okarun, but he quickly dodged it. However, this was actually a plan to trap him in the cursed house. Despite Okarun's efforts to push against the barrier, he couldn't break through. The evil eye told him he wouldn't be able to escape the cursed house. Suddenly, he entered the cursed house to confront Okarun, threatening him and punching him in the face. Trapped inside the barrier, Okarun couldn't avoid the evil eye's successive attacks. It was clear he was being badly beaten, which delighted the evil eye. He said that after him, it would be the girl's turn. The evil eye declared he would torment and torture Momo's soft, fair skin. However, this threat fueled Okarun to fight back. He grabbed the evil eye's mouth and told him to stop talking already. He said there were 3 things he shouldn't have done. First, he hurt Momo. Second, he defied Gigi. He added that Gigi would never hurt Momo. Therefore, Okarun demanded that the evil eye return his dear friend. The evil eye attempted to punch him again, but this time Okarun managed to dodge by ducking. When the evil eye tried to knee him, Okarun evaded the attack and simultaneously used both of his fists to deliver an uppercut to the evil eye. It was evident that the body used by the evil eye had been affected by the poison. As he was about to punch Okarun again, he declared that the kid gloves were off. And so Okarun gathered his remaining strength to strike the evil eye in the face. Seizing the opportunity, Okarun didn't stop his assault, preventing the evil eye from retaliating. He counted from 1 to 20 as he continued his attack, until finally, the cursed house barrier shattered, and the evil eye was thrown outside, his head hitting the ground directly. Okarun added that the 3rd thing the evil eye shouldn't have done was to piss him off. Suddenly, Okarun's mood shifted, and he commented on how depressing the situation was. Gradually, Turbo Granny's power faded from him, causing him to lie down and call for help from Ayase. Okarun was sprawled on the ground, seemingly exhausted. Nevertheless, he forced himself to stand up, saying it wasn't the time to just lie down. He looked up and said that Ayase was waiting for him, so he needed to climb to the highest possible place to make his escape easier. He dragged Gigi's body along with him. However, he noticed a noise coming from below. It turned out to be Turbo Granny, who was stuck in some slimy stuff down there. She was furious at the Tsukinoko for trapping her there. She then wondered what would happen if she was left there for the rest of her life. Unable to accept this fate, she shouted for help. Suddenly, Okarun arrived and said he recognized her voice, but he had thought she was already with Ayase. Turbo Granny couldn't believe her eyes when she saw him. Okarun told her to wait and that he would rescue her, but she responded by asking why he took so long. She urged him to hurry up and get her out of that slimy stuff. He told her not to rush him, because if he fell in, they'd both be trapped. When Okarun finally got close, he tried to pull her out. Turbo Granny repeatedly warned him not to fall, but due to the force of his pulling and the resistance of the slimy stuff, Okarun fell in too. Now they were both trapped in that place, which angered Turbo Granny, who called him utterly useless. So Okarun shouted for help. Turbo Granny told him to use her power, but he replied that he had already used it twice and couldn't transform anymore. And this irritated Turbo Granny even more. Left with no choice, they shouted together for help, calling out to Momo. Up above, firefighters could be seen coming to the rescue at the burning house. They were trying to extinguish the strong fire with water. On the side, a police officer was talking to Momo, asking if she was the one who started the fire. Momo admitted to starting the fire, but explained that the Kido family living there have been killing people. The police officer responded that the Injoji family lived there and asked if she had some beef with them. And so Momo held her head, realizing the conversation was going nowhere. The officer invited her to ride in the police car and tell the whole story at the station. He then asked if her parents were home right now. Momo became concerned when she suddenly noticed the sun was setting and said they needed to hurry. Instead of going with the police, Momo ran towards the firefighters, telling them to forget about the house and spray water on the ground. However, Two police officers pulled her back and tried to force her into the car. Suddenly, an earthquake shook the area, causing panic among the people. It was a strong earthquake that intensified, and so the police let go of Momo and told everyone to stay calm and not move until the shaking stopped. Momo knew the cause of it, and it was the worm rising from below. The worm's enormous body emerged on the surface, shocking everyone. People ran away when they realized it was a giant snake. Meanwhile, Momo was pleased, saying they made it just in time. She remembered Okarun mentioning that its weakness was sunlight, and since they couldn't bring the creature out on their own, she needed it to come out by itself. In a flashback of Momo playing with Gigi, he told her that worms breathe through their skin. After rain, the soil becomes waterlogged the next day, making it hard for worms to breathe, so they come out. In summer, when it's too hot, they end up drying out. Young Momo was impressed by Gigi's knowledge. This was called worm self-destruction. Just then, Momo noticed the worm hiding from the sun behind the house, which annoyed her. She saw a truck nearby and, considering it an eyesore anyway, used her psychic powers. With a giant hand, Momo threw the large truck to destroy the part of the house blocking the sun, causing the worm to weaken from exposure to sunlight. As the obstructing house was no longer there, the sun's rays reached the worm, causing it to gradually decay and struggle, leading it to coil up and fall to the ground. Momo, being curious about whether it was dead, approached and kicked it to check. She challenged it to a fight, but quickly ran away when the Tsukinoko suddenly moved again. It turned out that it had vomited and expelled everything it had eaten earlier. Momo was shocked to see that they were all still alive and considered them very lucky. They were members of the Keto family, who were trying to stand up from the sticky substance from the worm. However, instead of expressing gratitude, the head of the Keto family blamed her for what she had done. Momo clarified that it was the worm that had eaten them, but the head was referring to her killing of the great serpent, calling her a stupid girl. Momo couldn't believe they had been eaten by it, but that's what she kept saying. She apologized and said she had no time to argue further as she needed to help others. As she was walking, another earthquake suddenly occurred. Everyone was worried because it was stronger than before. The head of the Keto family said that Momo had screwed up big time. She claimed that everything was happening because of her and that she should be blamed. Momo couldn't accept this and suddenly bowed her head when the volcano erupted. She was shocked by what had happened. The head of the Keto family fell to her knees, saying that this was exactly what she had been talking about. She explained that by offering sacrifices, the great serpent had been protecting their place from that volcano. But now, it was all over because the great serpent had died, and it was because of Momo. The warning speaker in the area announced that the volcano has just erupted, and so everyone in the vicinity was advised to evacuate immediately. They were told to prioritize their lives and safety because the volcano had erupted. As a result, residents of the area could be seen rushing out to evacuate. The head of the Keto family recited the legend that a dragon rising to the heavens will cast a rainbow, and the mountain's wrath would swallow the entire village. She said this was exactly what the village legend, passed down through generations, had foretold. She asked Momo how she planned to fix this. Momo pondered her words, finding them strange. Normally, she thought, a worm wouldn't come out into the sun. So why did the legend mention a dragon rising to the heavens? She glanced at a nearby fire truck and realized they were mistaken. This wasn't the great serpent legend. The dragon rising to heaven referred as a natural fountain, and the erupting fountain was an omen of the volcano's eruption. People from the past knew this, which is why it was preserved as a legend. However, somewhere along the line, the interpretation had become twisted. She recalled what the shrine priest she had met had said. People deprived of the ability to think due to fear would believe in and perform acts such as human sacrifices. But Momo declared that she was there to prevent such mistakes from happening again. Using her giant hand ability, she lifted the Tsukinoko. The Keto family took a fighting stance, challenging her. Since she was taking responsibility, they said she would be their sacrifice. Irritated, Momo said this wasn't a joke. She wouldn't allow herself to be blamed for this. She rejected the idea of human sacrifice and forcefully threw the worm down. Momo quickly ran away, while the head of the Keto family was furious at what she had done to the remains of what she called the Great Serpent. Nevertheless, Momo continued running down the stairs while they followed, trying to stop her. Momo lifted the worm again and pulled it as if performing a dragon dance in the area. The Keto family couldn't accept this and told her to stop treating the Great Serpent like a joke. They said they wouldn't let her escape from them. We then see the destroyed hot spring from earlier, and this was where Momo headed, carrying the worm. She went to the place where water was gushing out and connected the worm's body there. As water flowed inside it, Momo said, "Water, main is checked." After that, she continued running while the members of the Keto family were still chasing her. While running, Momo thought that if the magma were to swallow the village, then the Great Serpent legend would come true. So, she wouldn't just stand by and let that legend happen. She realized the worm was a long tube from mouth to rear. Therefore, she once again used her psychic power to lift the worm's head and execute her plan to hose down the volcano's eruption. Momo was pleased that her plan worked. While on the road, she directed the worm's mouth towards the flowing lava. As a result, the volcano's eruption gradually cooled down because the water mixed with the worm's internal goo. Momo was delighted by this outcome. However, from a distance, the entire area appeared to be in serious trouble, as the forest fire was potentially more dangerous than the magma. Suddenly, the head of the Keto family leaped to catch and stop Momo. Momo tumbled onto the road, while the head of the Keto family declared that they wouldn't allow her to desecrate the Great Serpent. Meanwhile, other members of the Keto family avoided the moving body of the worm. Momo clarified that she was only trying to stop the lava and told them not to interfere. But the head retorted that they were the protectors of that place, and outsiders like her should just shut up. They charged at her together, saying they would sacrifice her to appease the wrath of the great volcanoes. Because of this, Momo wondered why they had switched gods, but they just told her to shut up again. Suddenly, someone intervened with a flying kick aimed at the Keto family, surprising them. The newcomer said he hadn't realized that Momo was his master's granddaughter and apologized. Momo recognized him as the priest who wanted to become a VTuber. He explained that 1 week ago, he had received a call from his master, Seiko. She had told him that 3 young people were coming to their area and asked him to watch over them. Momo couldn't believe that her grandmother was his master. The priest thought that the only visitor to the shrine this week was a woman interested in Tsukinoko monsters, so he assumed she was just a tourist. Meanwhile, the Keto family was irritated with him, saying they never liked this priest. They couldn't believe he was an accomplice to Momo and her friends. The priest told Momo to leave them to him and focus on extinguishing the fire. Momo agreed and thanked him. Once again, she lifted the worm's head, which had become even heavier now. Momo worried about when she would run out of steam, and she hoped she wouldn't suddenly collapse like before. However, the worm's body suddenly tore apart, which Momo couldn't believe. The remaining parts of the worm gradually gave way, causing water and goo to leak onto them. The Keto family members were then surprised when someone else suddenly arrived to fight them. It was the evil eye possessing Gigi's body, who knocked them down using a grudge ball. Momo called out to him, but the evil eye targeted the head of the Keto family, who fought back. She didn't back down, while Momo tried to stop them. When she realized he had no intention of listening, Momo helped the head of the Keto family by pulling her away using her giant hand ability. Now, the evil eye had 2 opponents, but as he was about to attack again, someone suddenly kicked him in the face and back. However, he managed to knock him down, and it turned out to be the priest. When the evil eye was about to knee him, Momo pulled him away using her psychic power. She then checked if he was alright. Because of this, the evil eye was irritated by Momo's interference and said that since she was in his way, he might kill her first. Momo was troubled because she knew he could kill if he continued, and she didn't want Gigi to become a murderer. Moreover, she asked where Okarun was and what he had done to him. The evil eye replied that he only wanted to talk about what he wanted to discuss, and now he was hungry. The priest couldn't believe what was happening and said that person was deadly, admitting he was no match for him. Meanwhile, the head of the Kido family blamed them again for the situation, saying they brought this trouble there. But Momo told her to shut the hell up, saying it wasn't the time for her BS. So they decided to work together against the evil eye. The evil eye charged forward while Momo instructed them to get down. Because of this, they avoided the grudge ball he had kicked. Nevertheless, the evil eye positioned himself for a downward kick, causing Momo and the shrine priest to dodge. The extraordinary strength of the evil eye was evident as his strike destroyed the ground. We then see the head of the Kido family rushed in using what she called the Jennifer Lopez Anaconda move. When the evil eye noticed her, he was about to kick the elderly woman, but Momo suddenly pulled her away using her giant hand ability to evade the attack. Using her right hand, Momo attempted to trap the evil eye while calling to the priest, who executed a move called Daze, Susan Mountain's Drop, and positioned himself beneath the evil eye. Now Momo used both hands to trap and restrain the opponent. At last, she succeeded and firmly held its upper and lower body. However, the evil eye effortlessly shattered Momo's psychic power when he hit it with a grudge ball, which shocked them all. Upon breaking free, the evil eye managed to kick the shrine priest, sending him flying into a tree that was destroyed by the impact. After that, he then targeted Momo, who was preparing to use her psychic powers, but was shocked to find they weren't working. Now defenseless, the evil eye lunged at Momo and jumped to deliver a powerful kick. Suddenly, he was struck in the face, surprising even Momo, who hadn't expected it. She peered out to check who had come to her aid. The newcomer attacked relentlessly, punching the stunned evil eye. He then asked Momo if she was alright. Finally, Momo recognized him as the mantis shrimp alien, who said he was there to help. Momo wondered why he's there and asked about his child. He replied that it was a long story and promised to explain later. A spotlight seemed to shine on Momo, which puzzled her, but it turned out to be light coming from a UFO. Momo heard someone complaining about how slow it was and requesting an elevator next time. One person became nervous as they began to float, while another responded, asking what kind of man he was and telling him to stop nagging. Momo was utterly shocked when she realized it was her grandmother riding on the floating Taro, telling her to hurry up and get them down. Seiko was irritated by this. On the ground, the shrine priest called Momo's grandmother master, while she addressed him as Manjiro and ordered him to perform the Tohakami Emitame incantation. He complied and immediately carried it out. Meanwhile, Seiko jumped down and instructed Taro to charge on her signal. Suddenly, she and the mantis shrimp alien, whom she called Kappa, rushed forward to confront the evil eye. However, the charge ball hit the shrimp alien, so Seiko faced the evil eye herself. Seiko wielded a baseball bat, using it to fight and strike at the evil eye, which nimbly dodged her attacks. After several attempts, she managed to hit him in the face. When she swung the bat again, aiming for the evil eye's foot, he managed to evade and leaped directly at her with great force. But it didn't hit Seiko, who brought him crashing to the ground. Seiko then signaled Taro that it was time. He positioned himself and quickly ran towards them. And so, the evil eye backflipped and prepared to punch the oncoming Taro. As a result, Taro's body shattered and separated into pieces, which alarmed Momo. However, the evil eye was surprised when Taro's fragmented body suddenly clung to it. It turned out that there were talismans attached to the pieces, and the shrine priest was enchanting them. Gradually, Taro's body reformed, enveloping the evil eye. Apparently, this had been Seiko's plan all along, much to Momo's astonishment. Thanks to their combined efforts, they managed to capture their target. Momo's grandmother announced it was time to leave, and Taro gave a thumbs up in response. Meanwhile, the lava spread had subsided due to the water and goo from the Tsukinoko. A UFO could be seen in the air, controlling the worm's body to spray water around the area. Inside the UFO, a young alien child asked his daddy if what he was doing was okay. This child was Chiquitita, the offspring of the mantis shrimp alien. He praised Chiquitita and told him to continue until the fire was extinguished. Seiko was furious, saying she had given a warning, but they still allowed the situation to escalate to such a terrible state. It was the shrine priest Manjiro she was scolding, who knelt to apologize. He said her instructions had been unclear. He argued that she should praise him instead, as he managed to figure out what to do despite not understanding her directions. Seiko responded with "not bad" and thanked him. She also expressed gratitude to the wild anatomical model. They had sealed the evil eye, thanks to Taro's help. Taro replied that he didn't know that's what he'd be needed for and wondered curiously what he should do with his organs that he was holding. Seiko suggested he just put them in a grocery bag or something. Meanwhile, Seiko asked her granddaughter Momo where Four Eyes or Okarun and the cat Turbo Granny were. But Taro pointed out that Momo seemed to be gone. It turns out she had quickly run off with the mantis shrimp alien. Momo appeared concerned as she remembered Okarun, who said she should escape first, then save them. Finally, they arrived at the ruins of Gigi's place. However, Momo still couldn't use her power, so the shrimp alien told her to stand back. He cleared away the debris covering the ground. Afterward, Momo peered down to check on Okarun below. What they saw was now full of magma. Upon seeing this, Momo couldn't believe it. She thought of Okarun again, saying this couldn't be happening. And so Momo shouted and told Chiquitita to direct the worm's phlegm at the magma. The shrimp alien asked what she was planning, and she replied that she was going in there. He tried to stop her, saying it was too dangerous. He didn't get to finish his sentence. While Momo asked what he was about to say would happen, Momo added that she had promised Okarun she would save him. While crying, she said Okarun was waiting for her. Meanwhile, Chiquitita said they couldn't put it in the magma. Moreover, Momo didn't need to go down there. She didn't need to die for nothing. Momo was confused by this statement and just told him to hurry and do it. Again, the shrimp alien tried to stop her because it was dangerous, but Momo just told him to talk to his child and tell him to hurry. While crying, she begged them to save Okarun. Suddenly, something floated up from below, and they were surprised to see it. Chiquitita doused it with goo and water and placed it aside. Momo quickly ran towards it, trying to open it. Though it was difficult, Momo used all her strength to break it open. Inside, they found Okarun hiding, hugging Turbo Granny. He had his eyes closed, while Momo was shocked to see him. When Okarun opened his eyes, he said he truly believed Ayase would come to save them. Meanwhile, Turbo Granny was furious and complained about the extreme heat. She was annoyed and asked why it took so long to save them. Momo admitted she has forgotten all about her. Okarun said that if he hadn't helped Turbo Granny, he might be dead by now. He explained that the area around the room was protected by the phlegm of the Mongolian deathworm, which kept the magma from entering. As Momo helped Okarun out, he suddenly asked about Gigi, concerned if he had been submerged in magma. Momo calmed him, saying she wasn't sure what happened, but Gigi had escaped using his power and was now outside. Okarun was puzzled by this and wondered if Gigi was still cursed. Momo clarified that the curse was still there, but her grandmother had appeared, so everything was okay now. Okarun apologized, saying he had planned to do something about Gigi, but in the end he couldn't do anything. Suddenly, his foot got stuck in the goo, causing him to slip and accidentally hug Momo. And so he quickly let go and blushed. Okarun apologized, saying he didn't mean to hug her. However, Momo tightened her grip on him and hugged him back, which Okarun didn't expect. Momo said she was the one who should apologize. She had said she would save him, but she couldn't do anything. She thanked him for still being alive. After that, they returned to the house of the Ayase, where they performed a sort of ritual for the evil eye. They once again donned traditional clothing, which Seiko had previously said would serve as their protection against evil spirits. While seated, they could be seen surrounding the evil eye, which was in Toro's body, lying in front of them. One could see its spirit leaking from the body, while Seiko, Momo, and Manjiro focused on exorcising it. Okarun and the alien father and child were also present at the side. They approached its body, and Seiko put on her glasses again to examine it. She removed the cover from the right side of its face. However, the evil eye said they were just wasting their time. After that, they were seen eating, and Ira was there to join them. She was thoroughly enjoying the food served. Chiquitita also enjoyed the milk given to him, and the shrimp alien said he was happy he got some. Meanwhile, Ira complained that they didn't include her in going to Gigi's house, even though she was supposed to be the leader. And so Momo wondered why she was there, saying that whoever didn't work shouldn't eat. On the side, Okaroon got annoyed when Turbo Granny stole the egg from his plate, while Seiko asked Manjiro about the Rockin' sect. The shrine priest replied that he had no idea because they hadn't been talking lately. While everyone was busy, Taro was curious if he could eat too. Suddenly, Ira pointed at the mantis shrimp alien and asked why he had returned since she had already told him not to come back to Earth. He replied that he was grateful for the cow he received. However, it didn't produce milk, so he had no choice but to return. He again mentioned incomprehensible alien words when explaining that part of them is covered by a water-like substance that delivers oxygen directly to their lungs, which is why milking is a problem there. Momo and Okaroon couldn't understand this. Momo asked if that meant they breathe using lungs, but live underwater. The shrimp alien clarified that Chiquitita needed a constant intake of milk to survive, so they decided to just live on Earth. Ira found Chiquitita cute and hugged him, while Okaroon was amazed to hear that they could get oxygen directly to their lungs. He was curious if this meant they came from a fluorocarbon planet. Meanwhile, Chiquitita asked Ira if they could stay there, to which she replied of course they could, for as long as they wanted. But Seiko said not them, because they were too old. In that case, it might take a while before they could get the Hayashi performers, Manjiro said. Although they felt bad for Gigi, he needed to stay in Taro's body for now. Manjiro was concerned that if the Hayashi performers did arrive, would they be able to fully exorcise it? Meanwhile, Taro was busy eating. Manjiro added, if it was just the evil eye, that would be one thing, but Gigi's spiritual power was so strong that he wasn't sure if they could separate the two. And even if they could do it, it might leave lasting effects on Gigi. Momo, Okaroon, and Seiko seemed worried about this, so they just looked at Taro while he was eating. However, he burned himself on the soup and complained. Seiko asked what he was doing and told him to stop eating like a pig. Taro got all worked up and was surprised why everything seemed to have turned black. He asked where everyone was and where he was. Because of this, Momo got annoyed at him and asked if he was joking, but he replied that it wasn't him. The one speaking was actually Gigi, and they were all shocked by this. They were pleased that he had returned. When Gigi called out, Momo was about to approach him, but Seiko stopped them because evil spirits use people's voices to trick others, so they shouldn't remove the seal yet. Seiko then instructed Taro to open his face slowly. Because of this, Manjiro, Momo, and Okaroon prepared themselves in case the evil eye spirit broke free. As Taro opened his face, surprisingly Gigi made a weird face with his tongue out. Momo couldn't be sure because of his weird face. Meanwhile, Gigi just cried when he learned that Momo and Okaroon were safe. He said he had been so worried and thanked them for being alright. He was also happy to see Seiko, whom he called ma'am, and told her she was beautiful as usual. Because of this, Seiko knew he was the real Gigi. Momo wondered what was happening, but her grandmother just asked her to get some cold water. When she had it, Seiko told Taro not to move, and he complied. Suddenly, Seiko splashed cold water on his face, and as a result, the evil eye's personality suddenly returned. He called them bastards and threatened to kill them all. Momo and Okaroon were troubled by what happened. Meanwhile, Seiko took some soup from the pot and poured it on Taro's face again. Because of this, he complained that it was too hot and asked what they were doing. Momo was confused by this, while Seiko seemed to have realized something and said this was a nuisance. Even Gigi could be seen puzzled by what happened. Momo asked what that was about. If they splashed him with cold water, was he the evil eye? And if it was hot water, he was Gigi? Gigi made a face again, saying he didn't know what to do. Momo kneed him and said this wasn't a joke. Meanwhile, Gigi apologized while holding Taro's head. Taro complained because he was the one getting hurt by what they were doing. Speaking of which, Taro was curious how long he'd have to lend his body to him. He said he couldn't be lovey-dovey with Hannah like this. So, Seiko said that for now, he couldn't meet her. Taro complained about this, but she said, first of all, Seiko had set a 10 o'clock curfew. She wouldn't allow Hannah to meet with a weird guy late at night. Taro replied that 10 o'clock was too early. Moreover, Seiko apologized to Gigi, as well as to Okarun, whom she called Four Eyes, and to her granddaughter Momo. If she had known the evil eye was there, she said she wouldn't have sent them there on their own. She bowed and took responsibility for what happened. But Momo told her to stop because she found her behavior weird, while Gigi replied that he was the one who asked for her help, so she shouldn't apologize to him. While lying on the floor, Turbo Granny joined the conversation, saying they were too naive to really believe they had the evil eye under control. She added that it was originally a mountain yokai, and mountain yokai are so full-on and revered as gods. If an ordinary person is possessed by a mountain yokai, she said they would go crazy, their cells would break down, and they would die. That's why they prefer people with high spiritual powers. In that respect, Gigi was truly the ultimate vessel, which seemed to worry him upon hearing this information. Furthermore, the evil eye there was like a newborn, so for now, they had managed to avoid disaster. However, it would grow stronger and eventually become unstoppable. So Seiko replied that they would make sure to watch over Gigi. Even Manjiro would keep an eye on him. Seiko added that he shouldn't leave Kamigo City until they performed the exorcism, or else they wouldn't be able to use the maximum power of the warding barrier. Moreover, Taro's barrier wouldn't last long. An evil spirit at the level of the evil eye can become resistant to barriers. So, Seiko said they had no choice but to use the thermos. She told everyone to make sure they always carried a hot water thermos so they could splash it on him anytime. She also advised Gigi to be careful when washing hands, drinking water, or bathing in the rain. Even a little cold water would cause him to transform. Thinking about what had happened, Momo said she didn't want to face the evil eye again, and Okarun agreed. He added that they needed to be vigilant until the exorcism was completed. Outside, Momo asked where the alien shrimp would live. He replied that he would work at a nearby dairy farm, thanks to Seiko. Momo thanked him for rescuing them. The shrimp alien said if anything happened, they should call him anytime. Again, Okarun was amazed by this and asked how their UFO flies. He questioned whether it was because of anti-gravity propulsion system. He replied using an incomprehensible alien word. Momo was suddenly curious about what his real name was. He answered that on Earth, he was Peeny Weenie. Their reactions were mixed because of this. Finally, they said goodbye to the father and child while Okarun expressed his desire to ride their UFO sometime. The next day, it seemed they had plans when Manjiro asked if everyone was inside. They had boarded a van driven by Manjiro. Momo asked how far the hospital where Gigi's parents were was. Her grandmother replied that she had them transferred to Kamigo City, so it was only about 10 minutes away. Meanwhile, Gigi complained that Taro was wearing his shirt backwards, but Taro just told him to shut up, saying if it were up to him, he'd be fine without wearing anything. During the trip, Seiko asked if they had brought thermoses and hot water. Momo showed that she had one, and when she asked Okarun, he showed the one hanging on him. The two were in the back seat, seemingly awkward with each other. Okarun was startled when he felt Momo's finger, so he lifted his hand and apologized. Momo replied that it was okay and that he was worrying too much. She told him to just leave his hand on the seat, and Okarun agreed. They were both just looking out the window when Momo held Okarun's hand again. Both of them blushed because of this. Momo moved her fingers on his hand as if playing, and so Okarun asked her what she was doing. Momo denied doing anything. Okarun clarified that he didn't know the rules of the game she was playing with his hand. While Momo was still holding his hand, she feigned innocence and asked what he was talking about. They were surprised when Gigi suddenly looked back and called Momo. He complained about Taro not following what he was saying. Momo couldn't answer and returned her hand to her lap, as did Okarun. Gigi tried to force her to talk to him, but Taro just told him to shut up. Gigi complained that he couldn't move his body and told Taro that he should move as he wanted. Meanwhile, the two in the back were embarrassed and still blushing. Gigi then counted to 3 for Taro to move as he wanted, but Taro just repeatedly raised his arms as if doing a chicken dance. and Gigi was annoyed by this. Taro didn't care about him, saying it was his body and he would move as he pleased. Suddenly, Momo brought up whether they should buy something to give to Gigi's parents. Seiko was surprised because she seemed to have forgotten about that and looked for a nearby supermarket. Momo leaned forward and said she hoped Gigi's parents were feeling better. Gigi replied that they were so hyper that getting sick was a perfect thing for them. Momo was taken aback by this statement and asked if he was pretending to be tough. Gigi denied this and asked why he would do that. He said he wasn't worried about them to begin with. Finally, they arrived at the hospital, and Gigi was teary-eyed when he saw his parents. They waved at him, and when he got close, they hugged him tightly. Momo, Okarun, and Taro were watching from a distance. They were happy to see that they were okay. However, Momo wondered why Gigi was just standing there like a board. She told Taro to adjust his movements. He replied that it was easy for them to say, but moving his body by itself wasn't easy. He suddenly raised his hands like a bird flapping its wings, which surprised Gigi's parents. Momo commented that he needed to sync up with Gigi. She got annoyed when she saw him doing strange movements. Meanwhile, Taro just wished to have his body back. At the hospital waiting area, news about the volcano eruption was being reported. It was said that no one died in the eruption. Currently, the wildfire was also under control. However, the area was still under a level 4 alert. Additionally, Joichi Kido and 10 others living in Daija, also known as the Serpent City, were arrested on suspicion of murder and abduction. The suspected ringleader was Naki Kido, whose age couldn't be determined. She was now on the run, so the police were searching for her whereabouts. But Naki, the head of the Kido family, could be seen furious. She was leaning against a tree and resting while spying on the police searching the forest. She was holding her right arm, which seemed to be in pain. She cursed, unable to believe that this happened after she had spent 200 years nurturing it. So, she threatened Momo, saying she wouldn't let this slide. She slowly transformed, revealing her true form. She declared that Momo had made an enemy of them, the Subterraneans.